This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we welcome you to a new week, but the end of a month. Today, the last day of April. Hope it's been a good one for you. Say hello to all of you out there in TV, radio, and wherever else land. We've had a busy weekend. The NFL draft is over. And what a draft it was, especially if you lived in the southern part of the universe. The SEC had the most players taken for the 12th year in a row. Take that, Danny Cannell. And all you other haters out there. Look at this. Listen to this. SEC, 53 picks. ACC moving up with 45. The Big Ten with 33. Remember when they used to run college football. Pac-12 with 30. Would someone hand me a microscope so I can find the Big 12? Big 12, please pick up courtesy phone number 1. It's over for you. Pick up your check and go home. You're done. How about this nugget? When Sean Dion Hamilton was selected by the Redskins, all 11 of the Tide's 2016 season-opening defensive starters had been selected in the last 2 NFL drafts. That's an amazing number. I saw something including free agent contracts. I think 17 players from the Tide were taken. Wow. Nick Saban. Things are really slipping in Tuscaloosa. Anyway, that's certainly the big story over the weekend. A lot of incredible stories out of Dallas, and we'll cover some of them for you. And on the program, you know who Wells Padgett is? Well, he's a happy man, and he's a toast of Lee County, Alabama. They rolled Toomer's quarter because of this man making a walk-off putt. And the Tigers are the SEC golf champions. Charles Davis from Fox, former Tennessee Volunteer. He'll join us with a recap of the draft. Connor O'Gara on why is beer green. Actually, that's not the purpose of his visit here, but we'll talk to him as well. Well, good to have all of you on board. It was a busy weekend. I'll tell you about my sojourn to the heart of the SEC, Birmingham. Interesting times there over the weekend. We'll talk about that. We'll get your phone calls at 855-24. What is the number here, Ryan? 855-242. Been out of town for 2 days. I forgot the number. 855-242-7285. I need to just write that on my hand. How about, could I get it tattooed on my hand?
Sure.
Why not? Bring her in. Let's get to the calls at 855-242-7285 and begin by talking to Brandon. Brandon, you are first up. Really glad to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Glad for you to have me on. I was going to kind of briefly touch on that meeting they had. I guess it was the induction ceremony into the Hall of Fame over the weekend. A lot of numbers have been coming out, like he said, the starting 11 all being inducted into the NFL draft since 2016. Nick Saban's got more first-round draft picks than losses in his career.
Yeah.
There's on and on stats. But my question is to you, Dabo Swinney seemed really chummy in that video that I've seen, and a lot of people still believe he'll be the replacement. Some people won't believe. I want to ask you from professional experience, first off, if you're an AD, are you going after Dabo? Is that still your number one?
Yeah, let me give some context here, Brandon, because I was the MC of that event that you're referring to, and I was with Dabo that morning, and we sat literally next to each other on that dais. So I had a pretty good observation of what he said. Dabo had his entire AD, his coaches, Board of Trustee members came up. I joked to the crowd that the Board of Trustees. I think I'm the reason for all these rumors. I joked that the Board of Trustees came up with Dabo because they were afraid to leave him alone with Greg Byrne in the audience and all the other Alabama fans and boosters. Everyone has pretty much agreed that Dabo would never take that job. Although I will offer this: being with him, talking to his family, understanding the importance of Saturday night to him, and maybe I got caught up in his emotion being in his hometown. But I would not say, or I wouldn't say never, because I think Alabama, if Saban leaves in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, will come after him hard. Right. And I think there is a temptation And this is just me watching him. We didn't talk about Alabama other than when he played there and his coach was there, Gene Stallings. But I just watched him in that room Saturday night, Brandon, and that is unbelievably special to him. So is Clemson. That's his home. That's where he lives. And, one person made the argument to me earlier, well, why would he leave Clemson, where he's the best coach in Clemson history, to go to Alabama, where if he won 4 national championships, he'd still probably be the 3rd best coach in Alabama history. But, I don't think that matters to him because he played there. That's his school. That's his wife's school. And I think under the right set of circumstances, he could be tempted. I'm not saying he's going. I'm just saying he could be tempted.
I kind of agree with you, too. I just think that there's something there for him to look at. And then my last point on that is if you're in Dabo's shoes and you're looking, and I'm not downgrading Clemson because gosh knows they are a great football team, is the next 20 years, if you're Dabo and you're put in that spot, on a measure of success, is it Alabama or is it Clemson? And I hope you have a good day Monday.
Thank you very much. And I want to say one more because I think this. I made some comments this morning on WJOX about this, and predictably, a lot of people have reacted. But no one knows. I don't think Dabo Swinney knows. I know he just signed a new $8 or $9 or $10 million a year contract. He's not going tomorrow. And the argument is why would he ever leave an ideal situation? Well, 5 years ago, if you had asked Jimbo Fisher, would you ever leave Florida State to go to Texas A&M? The answer would have been, you're crazy. He turned down LSU, maybe twice. You just never know when it's your alma mater. And Dabo Swinney, with a national championship and with 3 consecutive college football playoff appearances, it's not as if he is unproven. I mean, on his worst day, he's probably the 3rd or 4th best coach in the country right now. He may be higher than that. I made the comment this morning, and I'll make it here, obviously, that he is probably the only person, or the best suited person, I should say, to take Saban's place. I don't think you can move some hot coach in there and do it. Dabo knows the territory. People know who he is. And I think that's why if you brought in Jim Harbaugh or any other big-name coach, they would have a difficult time because they wouldn't have played there, and Dabo did play there. We are taking phone calls here, and Terry is in Virginia. You're on the air. Go right ahead, Terry.
Paul, how you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Sounds like you had an epic weekend.
I really did. It was every time I go to Birmingham, it just kind of overwhelms me.
My hometown. Love it. Hey, I wanted to tell you about the weekend that I had, the honor I had. I played golf in the Kerry Good golf outing with Rich and Larry from Shelby and Darriel from Augusta.
I've seen the pictures.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah, Rich sent me some pictures. I don't know if I still know where. Tell us all about it, Terry. I can't wait to hear.
Well, Paul, let me tell you. All right. Rich had asked me a while back, and so I said, oh, man, I'd love to. So I went down, and so we got there, and Rich's friend, Sam Bryant, he's a friend of Kerry's from college and all that, and he was the one that organized it. And what a class guy. He was great. And he said, thanks for, Rich had gotten the word out on your show, and thank you for all that. And so while we're signing in, he introduced us to Kerry, and what an honor that was. And he's a class guy, and that was great. And so then we started playing, and then when it was over, they had a silent auction, and that's what they said. We were in there. One thing that was really cool about it, there were several players that, you recognize, like from Kerry's era, like Cornelius Bennett was there, and we met him, and he could not have been nicer and just very approachable guy. And he said we were listed as the Finebaum foursome. And so that word got out, hey, these guys are Finebaum fans and stuff. And so Cornelius said, oh, you guys listen to Paul and all, and he said, "Tell Paul I said hi."
Oh, wow.
So I wanted to tell you that. That was nice. And but anyway, there were some other guys, and then we met Kerry's brothers. You remember Pierre Good?
Oh, sure.
And Chris Good, and man, they were class guys. Super nice, So they were guys from later in I guess maybe late Perkins era, and then Curry, and then their cousin Antonio Langham was there, and man, how great was that to meet him, and very approachable guy. We hit balls on the driving range with him, and talk football, and they got to take all those pictures and stuff, so it was great. They had great support from these ladies that were there supporting the whole thing, for ALS, and they couldn't have been nicer. We met a couple of gentlemen that are going through the same thing Terry's going through, and they were great guys too. So it was just an epic weekend, and it was great.
Thank you very much, Terry. I really appreciate the report. I'm going to see if I can dig those pictures up and we can share them with the audience. We have a lot to do today. We'll get to all of the guests, including your phone calls at 855-242-7285. We're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. We were talking during the break about Dabo Swinney's accomplishments as he was being honored Saturday night with a number of other people at the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame banquet in Birmingham. Darriel, I think, is going to be honored next year at the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame banquet as the best caller in Georgia history. Darriel, go right ahead.
Well, the first be Larry Munson. But you know what? There's no way I see Dabo Swinney ever leaving Clemson to go somewhere else. And this is why. He's had an established program. Okay, they've won a national championship. You know what it's like to fall behind the footsteps of a legend. No matter, it will be a no-win situation for him.
By the way, you are correct. But you never, Darriel, you never know when someone is ready to go back to a place that they have previously lived and feel comfortable in.
Maybe so, but not to follow Nick Saban. Maybe to follow the coach after Nick Saban.
Maybe you're right. But my only argument, though, Darriel, is that he's the most qualified, though. I
probably agree with that. But I don't think there's a dollar amount Alabama can lay on the table that Clemson will not match.
I totally agree with you on that.
I'm gonna tell you something. Dabo Swinney, you gotta keep us in. You gotta keep us in mind. Okay, Dabo Swinney, nor has Kirby Smart. They had not had to overcome what I think really defines how good of a football coach is, and that's the loss of big time assistant coaches. We're just starting to see Alabama now have to experience that. Saban's always been able to fill the hole with another big time defensive coordinator, another big time offensive coordinator.
No, you're right.
That ain't the case this year. So we'll still
Alabama is in terms of coordinators. I mean, they are at a place they haven't been in a long time.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna tell you, Clemson. If you might go on and pencil them in, Paul. I don't see how they cannot make the 14th playoff. They only had 3 players that went in the draft. The first one went in the 3rd round. They have to be loaded. And in that cupcake schedule they have, their schedule is easier actually than Alabama and Georgia's schedule. By the rating, by the power strength of the schedule is much easier. Hey, I noticed Georgia got all their players drafted that were supposed to, except for Trent Thompson. Another 5-star bust. I mean, why that guy decided to not come back his senior year, I have no idea what he was thinking. I mean, even if he came back, he wasn't going to go in the first 3 rounds. I mean, when you're out on a dirt road and your eyes are bloodshot and they call the law, your days of going in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft are over, okay? Big time. But he could at least come back for his senior year. I have no idea. I don't know what he was thinking. I mean, he never lived up to the expectations at Georgia. But I think he signed as a free agent, but then he went under draft to top that off. I mean, what deal? He got nothing. He got no degree. He in the NFL. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Paul, I wanted to ask you about your boy there, Paul. You Notre Dame guy. What does he think about that graduate leaving Notre Dame that was going to Oklahoma and now he's coming to Georgia? How about that?
No, well, he's not here today. I mean, it's a Monday, so Kubiak.
Oh, okay. He don't work on Mondays.
He's busy today. Will he be back tomorrow? No, travel day.
Travel day to work, 20 miles. Day. They get travel days.
What day is Kubiak back, Randy?
I believe he comes back Thursday.
He'll be back Thursday.
Yeah, he needs a couple of days to recuperate.
Did he make it to work this morning?
He had to go on a trip. So when Mark goes on a trip, he needs a day to travel and a day to recover.
Trip to where?
He's actually in Athens today.
He's in Athens. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to ask him, how did that float his boat? Because I wanted, you know what, I was thinking about this over the weekend. I want John and Kubiak and all them to understand one thing, okay? They didn't build this ship. This ship was built long before they boarded it, okay? All they got to do is float the ship.
Darryl, I have to ask you this because every time you say that, and I want to bring Randy and John back in. Randy has been doing other things. He's played a big role in our show lately, but John's been here since day one. I mean, why are you such a hater?
I'm not a hater.
Why are you such a hater on John Hayes?
Hey, this is ESPN, okay? What do we got from ESPN taking the show to North Carolina, okay? First, you got to know, don't tell you have to go first stay in. But here's the deal, okay? So you got a wider perspective now. You can reach out to more people. I can understand that, okay? As far as connection-wise, but how's the show changed me for the good? I ain't saying it's bad, but how did?
Hey, John, would you answer this guy here who he's part of the Vickers crowd?
I honestly don't even know what to say, Darryl. I mean, you're still watching the show after 5 years at ESPN, so you must like something about it.
So the show wasn't on TV before, and now it is to millions of fans out there. Yeah. So why is that bad? It's a broader audience. So is a bigger audience better?
Just learn how to do a top 10 poll. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm asking.
There the trick comes out.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
You should be able to do a top 10 poll player. I know find a local drone.
Hey, Darryl, do me this favor before you go. What was better about the show then than now?
What was better about the show then than now? Well,
Darryl got more airtime.
I can easily answer that. Jim from Crestwood would be one answer.
Yeah, Darryl, you answer the same way. Forget one caller is not enough to make a show different.
But I understand that. But something should be better, right? I should be able to think of something better right now than what it used to be. And I can't. So I ain't saying it's worse. But I can't think of anything that's
all you
really
ever do
better.
Is talk about how much better the show used to be. That's your same take every day. Show was better. Show was better. I'm just asking you as a interested party, what was better? We want to learn, Darryl.
Paul, let's think about some of the people that's contributed to the show.
I'll tell you what's better. This is much better right here. The lines, when the phone call's not dropping, and crap like that's much better. We haven't experienced any of that crap from Cumulus or Clueless or whoever they were used for. But you know what? That's infrastructure right there. It should be like that. It's ESPN. But the bottom line is you can be one of two things, John. You can be a producer or you can be a producer. See what I'm saying? See you, Paul.
One thing you have to admire about Darryl, if you missed his take 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, he'll still give you the same take today.
It sounds like that he just replayed the same thing that he played for us on Friday.
I mean, can you think in the history of rock and roll or modern music, somebody has had like one hit, never had another hit, a one-hit wonder? That is Darryl. Same take every day.
Paul, that's exactly why he didn't make the list.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Mark Kubiak joins us. Mark Kubiak, who's supposed to be in Georgia today.
I'm in Georgia. I'm standing around all these Georgia people. We're listening to the show. I had to step out because I had to apologize to all these fans for Darryl. And so I'm coming back in. And
that's his school. I mean,
exactly
Mark is at the University of Georgia today, finishing up something that we were involved with about a week and a half ago. We're doing a project, and Mark went back. I couldn't make it today, but Mark is. So, Mark, give us your take on Darryl.
It's the same thing, you know. And everybody's sitting here, Paul. The show's on. Everybody in the athletic facilities watching it, and they're saying, "Let's hear what they have to say." I'm like, "Oh, you got a dog call on here. Let's hear what he has to say." And before he started, I told him everything that he was going to say. Oh, Georgia's going to be good. Alabama stinks. Why does John and Mark think they run the show? All the same stuff. Just because he didn't make a top 10 list. All right, there. Here's a top 10 list for you. Your top 10 worst calls.
Man.
Worst callers. That's it.
The worst callers in the history of the show?
Yeah, I think so.
Would you put Darriel on that list?
I think he's top 5 right now. I need Hayes to confirm it, but he's right up there.
Yeah, we put the list together. We trolled Mark Darriel on Friday. I don't think he realized it, but I put him on a list with Matt in San Antonio.
He had
with
no
Millie.
idea that he was getting trolled.
And that's the problem today. It's like Darriel for a week now has been so caught up on this top 10 caller list that we specifically made to troll him and get him to react this way, and he's just playing into our hands. And at this point, I'm starting to feel bad for the guy.
Just putty in our hands, Paul. That's all Darriel is to us.
There it is. We're showing the list now, Mark. This is the top Finebaum Show Caller Mock Draft 3.0. These are the callers that really honestly could work on their craft. We start Joe in Red Bay, Millie in Rolla, Darriel in Columbus, Matt in San Antonio, Ed in Niantic. That group is lumped together in my mind.
That's a fantastic group.
Of this list, I mean, some of these people on this list I really like as callers. I find Tom in Cleveland to be hilarious.
Hi, Paul. Paul, I mean, come on, we know what he's going to say.
I think
Paul.
Buckeye Earl is very
Paul.
funny. Donnie is growing on me.
I don't know if Joe in Red Bay is number 1. That's tough. That's a tough list.
I mean, Joe's got to give us a weather report first in North Alabama. That's his first thing he does.
Hey, Mark, here's the question. You're down on the ground there in Athens. And, Paul, I'm curious if you think this as well. Are Georgia fans embarrassed by Darriel? Like, do they want to even be associated with this guy?
Their cause. They're all looking for somebody better. It's like they have this quarterback that's been there forever that's not really winning games. So they're looking for somebody to step in. So this is a call-out to all Dog fans. We're looking for a new starter.
And by the way, for those who are listening on radio, Mark Kubiak is right now at the University of Georgia football complex. So he is speaking from the inner sanctum there.
We're live. We're live here, Paul. And I'll tell you what, I got to run. I'll do a little snooping around to see if I can find somebody. And maybe by 5 or 6, I can have somebody call back with a better take.
Okay, good deal, Mark.
All right.
Mark Kubiak, obviously watching the show at the University of Georgia.
Feet on the street.
I think he mainly wanted to let us know that he wasn't out playing golf today. We're taking a break. Your phone calls continue. We do have a couple of pretty major guests coming up here shortly. Phone lines are available at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Next, you're holding up the line, ma'am.
What did you say?
You're next in line for the water slide, ma'am. Feet forward and enjoy the ride.
Okay, dearie, this does look fun. Whee-oh, you melted me. I've melted.
The Wicked Witch of the West on a water slide? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
See what you've done. Oh!
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Welcome back to the program. We had Darriel on, and I think Kubiak was at the University of Georgia, and telling us that the mood there was pretty grim, that Darriel was the signature caller. Let's try one more, because I know folks are watching. There's a big event tonight at UGA, and I know that Kirby and the whole gang is there, and I just don't want to let us get a bad rap at the University of Georgia. They're too important. So let's try one more caller here. A little calmer, a little more serene.
What's up, Paul?
A little better educated. Matt from Gainesville, Georgia.
Hey, I got a question for you, Paul. If I lived in a trailer park, dated my sister, and was an Alabama fan, would I be in the top 5 callers on the Finebaum Show? Just wondering.
Yeah, right now I think Matt, you are one of the top 5
fans.
Because I
think Darriel's got a point here.
I think you are one of the top 5 callers right now.
I think Darriel's got. And I'll say this right now: Darriel lives in Columbus. Columbus is a lot closer to Alabama.
Columbus is pretty much in Alabama.
Yeah, that's why he's so nutty. He doesn't represent UGA. He's 4 hours away.
If you're in Columbus, Georgia, and I've been there, you're actually watching.
Be an Auburn fan.
You're watching television from Alabama. You're not watching Georgia. I think Columbus has some stations, but you're getting the Alabama TV you're part of the not directly, but you're pretty close.
Yeah, no,
I think it's an Auburn town, don't you?
I'm sorry, I'm not. What's the important event at UGA?
They're dedicating. They're naming. Actually, they're dedicating the name of the UGA indoor practice facility to Billy Payne and his father.
Very important guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, is that why you went down last week?
Yeah. I mean, there's no secret. We spent the day 2 weeks ago with Billy Payne in Athens.
I got a question too. SEC storage. You know, they've done Dooley. Why hadn't they ever done the Bear? I mean, they should. I mean, Matt,
I have no earthly idea how SEC storage works.
I got you. No, I just watch them all, and like I would think, I mean, just it's true. No hard feelings. I'd like to see one on the Bear. I've seen one
the Bear has been. I mean, almost every ESPN did a documentary on the Bear. CBS did a documentary. I mean, he's been done.
Yeah, the Junction Boys. I mean, that was great. Yeah. The Junction Boys was great, but that was Texas A&M. It's good. It'd be good to see it in the Alabama years more so than the before.
That's just what the world needs more. Some more shows about Bear Bryant.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, other than this show,
I was watching the replay this morning while I was running about Dominique and how you had your little 30-second segment, how you were covering high school recruiting and how cheating was bad back then. So. Well,
hey, by the way, I'm surprised you're not going to be there tonight, being a major mogul at UGA with one of your.
I'm just a nobody, Paul. Remember? Okay. I mean, I don't. You remember? Everybody thinks I'm just a nobody. I'm not a Darriel. I'm not the signature caller. I was thinking you ought to have a tournament bracket. Callers, like 2 Alabama callers.
Let me ask you a question, Matt, since we have you on the phone. And are you fairly new to the show? I can't remember.
Yeah, fairly.
I mean, if you had to come up with your top 5 callers or top 10, where would you start? Outside of yourself, of course.
I think Jim.
Okay.
And just because, he's crazy, delusional, but he gets. Listen, I think you got to base it off. It's not what people are saying is how much they're saying.
Yeah.
Jim, Larry from Shelby. I think Updike's got to be on there because that call was basically a part of a documentary. I think. Tammy,
yeah, listen. He's Lifetime Achievement Award for the most criminal call ever made on this show. But he's.
That call kind of. You think about it. That call kind of. That was before you hit ESPN. That call was part of Roll.
Well, Matt, I would argue it's the most famous call in sports talk history.
No, I think it is. I think it is, and I remember exactly what you're saying. You didn't realize what he had said until he had said it. When
the day I leave here or die or whichever comes first, and debatable which one it is. That will be that will be what they say. The guy who took the call from Harvey up. I hate to run, Matt. We're up against the break. We have an Auburn golfer on who made the critical putt yesterday to lead the Tigers to an SEC golf championship. There he is. I think he's the toast of Auburn right now. Something tells me he is. We'll talk to that young man right after this.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We'll talk to Wells Padgett. We welcome in the talk of the town. We just got through playing, for those of you on radio, his winning putt. Wells, first of all, congratulations. This has to be an amazing moment for a freshman.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was.
Well, let's start with the round. This is as good as it gets. You're playing on television. You're playing your rival. You're playing for the SEC championship. What was the mindset of the team, first of all, going into Sunday morning?
Well, we just knew we had a big task at hand. Alabama's a great team. They've always been a great program, with their history. And, we just know that we're playing great players and make more putts than them. And thankfully we did.
Yeah, so this is I was about to say this is something you dream about, but you haven't had that long to dream. You're only a freshman. But You mentioned in the interview with Peter Burns being confident, and that seems to be your MO. But help me understand this. I'm guessing, I don't play golf very well, but confidence is pretty important in golf, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's very important. Like you can miss a couple putts out there, and you can get down on yourself, and it's a doubting game. But you just got to stay strong, stay confident, and you play your best golf when you're very confident. And I feel like you just got to have some cockiness to yourself, and thankfully I do, and that helped me prevail this week. So
I've always wondered about this in talking to a number of PGA players. They always say it's probably tougher to win in a Ryder Cup, President's Cup than maybe in an individual tournament because everyone is pulling for you. You're carrying the team. So this was on the 16th, is that right? Or what hole was it that you made this putt?
It was on 18.
18, I'm sorry. Well, I apologize. We just got through watching you make a putt on the 16th. So it comes down to the final hole. This is going to win it for your team. First of all, you got to get 20 feet away, right?
15 to 20 feet.
15. Yeah, there's some debate. Which one was it?
Let's just split. Let's go about 17.
Okay. By the way, you should be a diplomat. You just went ahead and split the difference. It looked like 17 feet 4 inches to me. So you're a fast player. Take us through. You lined the putt up. You didn't waste a lot of time. You knew which way it was going to break. Obviously, was it a big break?
Yeah, it was about a foot and a half break. Especially with the speed I had to play with it. It was straight downhill, and he had about an 8 to 10 footer left. So I didn't want to leave myself anything left. So it was just a dying speed, and I wanted to make sure when it went in the cup that it was just dying into the hole. And doing that, I had to play a little extra break.
Now, if you don't play golf, you don't understand what you were doing. But, I mean, you knew pretty quickly that putt was going in, didn't you?
Yeah, you can kind of tell when you play a lot of golf, especially with greens like that. They're rolling very pure. And I just kind of knew 3-4 feet out it was on my line, and you can just see the ball kind of curling, and I knew it wasn't going to go low side or stay high side. And, I started kind of using some body English there, just walking it in a little bit.
I mean, you did the classic walk-off.
Yeah, I did. And, that's just probably from watching Tiger all these years, looking up to him and, just trying to be like him,
Well, by the way, Tiger could have used some of those putting skills a few weeks ago at Augusta. I want to ask you about that because I've read that Tiger, I mean, you can't help but grow up in your era and not be enamored by Tiger Woods. When did you start playing golf? What age?
I started playing about when I was 2 years old. And, my dad he'd take me out on the golf course when I was about 5, and we'd go look for golf balls, try to find golf balls that people lost. And, it was just late after he got home from work, we'd just go play golf, and that's how I got started.
Yeah, this was before the era of Top Golf. So was Tiger the guy? I mean, he was winning everything, I guess, when you were a little kid, wasn't he?
Yeah, I actually didn't get to experience him, in his early 2000s, but kind of towards, his mid-2000s where he was making, that 15-footer at Torrey Pines for the U.S. Open to get into the playoff. I remember watching that vividly, and the chip on 16 at Augusta when he chipped that in, and it was dramatic. And that's the Tiger I was used to watching.
Well, speaking of legendary golfers, you've been around one as an alum. Jason Duffner, who won the PGA 5 years ago, sent out a tweet congratulating the Auburn golf team, and that had to be pretty special to all of you. Talk about how often I think Jason lives down there. How often do you guys see Jason?
We see him a little bit. It depends on his schedule, but past couple weeks we see him a lot because he's had some downtime. But the really cool thing was that he tweeted that, and he had to play a final round Sunday at the tournament, so he was keeping it updated on his phone and watching it before he played, and that's just really cool that he cares that much about our program and just that much about us, and he's just a great guy to have around. Yeah, no, he's and I know how involved he is down there. So if you win any championship at Auburn, everyone knows you got to get back to Auburn. You're not that far away. Everyone knows what the next step is, and that is rolling Toomer's Corner. We got a couple of pictures up for those who aren't watching on television, listening on the radio. There's the championship trophy and Toomer's Corner being rolled. What about it, Wells? Have you participated? I mean, you're still pretty young at Auburn. You're a freshman, but this had to be an incredibly cool moment for you. is very cool. You know, we've rolled tumors for football games and basketball games, but you know, being able to roll it for the golf team is very special. We had a lot of people out there and a lot of fans, and just, you know, having that support back home is huge, especially the guys on our team that weren't there, that were supporting us back here. You know, that tournament's for them too, and you know, they contributed a lot back home, and you know, they helped push us, and it's just great having a team like that at Auburn. And you know, just honestly, people say Auburn's a school for the best athletes and best student athletes, and that truly is what it is. And it's just great that I have the privilege to be able to do that here. And you know, they gave me the opportunity here to make that putt and play that match and win that tournament. So it's just been a special time.
What has it been like today? I mean, I'm sure it's hard to get your bearings. Right? The season's not over. You got a lot of golf left with the NCAA, but take us through your day, assuming you made it to class today.
Well, actually, we don't have class right now. We're preparing for finals. I actually woke up at like 5:30 this morning because I've been so used to waking up that early for the tournament this whole week. And woke up at 5:30, typed my 3-page paper that was due, and did that, went back to sleep, and then got back up. I actually caught the replay from yesterday, and me and my roommate, we watched the replay of it, and it's crazy. Me and him were more nervous watching that today than we actually were playing it yesterday.
Did you have any bad dreams as you're watching your putt again, and maybe this time it doesn't go in?
No, I just just watching that coverage, you know, it's just weird how we were so nervous. We're like, are we sure we're actually going to win this? Because you see all the momentum change, and it was just really cool to watch us come out on top and just see the coverage. It was just really cool to see us on TV and watch that celebration again.
So are you in the middle of finals, or just about to get to the finals?
We're starting finals. We have some guys that have taken them today and tomorrow, and thankfully mine are in a couple of days, so I'll have some time to study for those.
You'll have no trouble. You're the biggest name on campus right now, so enjoy it. Listen, I know the NCAA tournament is yet to come. Hopefully, we're talking to you guys in a couple of weeks, bringing home a trophy there.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just important for us. You know, we're celebrating right now, but we know we still have business to take care of, and we're getting ready for regionals, and we need to take care of business there.
Well, congratulations again. Fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Padgett made the winning 15-footer. Some think it was a little bit longer. We've decided 17 feet 4 inches. Regardless, he made it. A walk-off putt to win the SEC Men's Golf Championship. A quick break. More phone calls to come at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. Second hour is live, and the first one was really good. A lot of conversation about callers during the first hour. I think the majority of it on Darriel, who had pretty much a train wreck of a phone call. John Hayes and Randy, and especially Mark Kubiak, called us from Athens, excoriated Darriel. Darriel apparently is back and would like to respond.
Okay, first of all, that was the Auburn guy that made the putt, right, on Sunday to win the thing. That was him. That was a nice putt. There wasn't much break to it. Let me ask you this real quick. You remember when well, I was just thinking about putts. Remember when John Daly ended up winning the British Open in sudden death? But that guy had to make it like a 200-foot putt.
Constantine Roca, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to make sure I understand this, okay? I was well known up and down the West Coast for years on Jim Rome's show, okay? There was a bar in Southern California from L.A. to San Diego that I can go into. Drinks were on the house every freaking time, okay? So then I come to Paul Finebaum later on and find out who he is. Start calling him. So my resume looks pretty good, I would say. Okay, but all of a sudden now I'm a bad caller. So I got a question for John. Is John there?
Fire away, Darriel. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay,
not until 7 anyway.
But since I'm such a bad caller, I want you to give me an example of what a good caller is. I'm Paul Finebaum, okay? John, you're next. Let me hear.
Darriel, I didn't sign up to do an exercise here on a Monday afternoon.
When you go criticize, you just say, I mean, come on. You got to be able to give me some example of what a good call sounds.
Hey, Darriel, for your edification, John.
I don't talk about Penn State enough, right?
Darriel, would you slow down for a second?
Sure.
John hosted his own radio show in a major market this fall.
Okay.
I think John Hayes is very capable of being on the radio. Okay,
here's one thing, Paul.
Are you capable?
The problem is, though, when you think about it, Penn State, a degree in journalism, I've been with ESPN for 6 years, hosted my own show in a top market. But that resume does not compare to being a Jim Rome and Finebaum show caller. That is one thing that I know for sure.
That's what made this show different than all the rest of them. You already heard everything up to now and all the other sports radio shows. That's what I think you're not getting here. I think you're missing that. There's a reason this show.
Hey, Darriel, since very few people alive even know who Jim Rome is, I do. Why don't you tell the young people in the audience what you once did on the Jim Rome radio show?
What I once did on the Jim Rome radio show.
You're trying to convince us that's part of your repertoire, that you used to be a top caller to Jim Rome.
Oh, I did. I went right to the front of the line every time. And even on this Talk 2 show on ESPN2 when it first come out. Right to the line. I was part of a 30-30 Jim Rome did.
Okay, Darriel. Hey, Darriel. By the way, Darriel.
Gave him what he deserved.
Darriel, if we were sitting in a bar and you told me that, I would say something obscene like, "Who gives a?"
Oh, that's because you don't like Jim Rome. That's a no-brainer. I'm with you on that. I don't like Jim Rome. I thought the best thing that ever happened to Jim Rome was when Jim Everett slammed him for calling him Chris.
But Darriel, my point to you is not that Jim Rome is good or bad. At one time, I listened to his show. I thought he was hilarious. I haven't, one thing, the mistake Jim Rome made is that he's doing the same show now in his 50s that he did in his 20s, and you can't do that. You have to adapt.
Exactly. You got to be able to adapt. And you know what? I'm sure if I talk more about Penn State and the Big Ten. But that's not what this is the SEC show. That's what it was built off of. That's the foundation of it. You built it, But I'm
Thanks
sure
for
if I talk
telling me
more
that.
about
I didn't know.
that, the Big Ten, I'm sure that would be a great caller, like Andy from Ohio.
Darriel, do you know your problem as a caller? I'm going to help you here. You don't communicate. You're like. You sound to me like you're at a Chick-fil-A drive-in in the middle of a hurricane, and you're trying to order, and the guy can't hear you. Why don't you talk to the host as opposed to scream at the host?
In the South, you know what a John is, right? What we refer to as a John. That's where you go take a Randy. You know what I'm saying? Speaking of which, what are you surprised that every time you see all the player drafted? It's amazing that I don't see why none of them, all of them end up going to Pittsburgh. That's where they were born to play.
Okay, Darriel, I got to break in here because you called in for a reason, and I still don't know what the reason was.
Well, I called in for a reason because I want John to give me an example, but he can't do it. He can sit there and bump his
John,
phone,
you want to respond to this?
He can't give me an example. He can't show me, so that tells me all I need to know. He goes out to wonder.
Yeah.
Let's ask Squirrel what a good call is, Paul. He knows.
Squirrel does know what a good caller is. Hello, Squirrel.
Well, what is a good caller? A good caller to me is inspiring, compelling, comes to mind.
Sapient.
I was just getting ready to say sapient.
That's my word. By the way, that's my word of the day.
that was going to be the last one, but those are the attributes I look for in original.
Originality. That's Darriel's problem. He's not original.
Some of your stars are not making the list too well. It's been
Squirrel,
kind of amusing the past
I don't
few
really
days
want to hear
listen
about what happened the way it used to be, okay?
You know what's interesting?
Exactly.
And I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about it. We use the S word a lot when it comes to calls, and that word is sapient. And it's important. But I'm starting to realize there's another S word, and it's smart. And most of these callers are just not that. And I think that might be the problem here. Darryl's not very. He's not very smart.
Joe a real smart caller.
And Joe from Red Bay, I love the guy, but he's really just not that smart.
John is now handing out.
He's going full tilt on this today, boys and girls.
Here in the Finebaum class.
They're not passing my class. They couldn't pass basic English in second grade.
You're producers, but now they're just deucers. You know what I mean?
But, don't you realize that Joe is the president of the Paul Finebaum fan club?
I did not realize
that. Should carry some merit right there. So, I'm not sure if y'all have any members yet or anything, but, I don't know. It's been kind of amusing. But But and Matt definitely from Gainesville is definitely a top 5 caller. There's Jim's disciple. And speaking of Jim, did you go over? Did you take the opportunity, Paul, to go over to Tuscaloosa? And
my activities were pretty well confined to downtown Birmingham. Never got out of the downtown area.
Well, like I said, y'all need to patch your bridge. Speaking of Jim, I came across an early video of Jim playing baseball and sliding into home plate. I think from the looks of the video, he's 3 or 4. So I guess if he's 40 years old, I guess it'd be 81 or 82. Mm-hmm. So, but it's the early days of Jim sliding into home plate. You can always tell he had Cooperstown potential already. But I sent you a copy on Twitter. Look it up. Thanks for taking my call. Aloha.
Clark is up next in Tuscaloosa. Hello, Clark.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Like, as if you don't get asked that enough. It's been a long time since I talked to you. I got to say real quick before I talk to you about what I want to talk to you. Speaking of callers, I think you got to go way back. Best callers of all time, and they're not even here now, but I think Shane and Mildred probably were the 2 best callers ever. Whatever happened to Mildred?
By the way, Mildred is still alive. Mildred actually has a job these days and can no longer pretend to be a 94-year-old woman.
Well, listen, when I call, I got a call day before yesterday from a great friend that's actually from upstate New York that calls Andalusia, Alabama home right now, but he's got an 8-year-old granddaughter that is in the critical care unit at Children's Hospital at Birmingham and has a cancerous tumor, and possibly plural, on her brain. They've already done 2 surgeries in the last week, and certain the diagnosis is just not well. The grandfather that called me was so emotional. I was on the phone with him probably for 3 hours. It was a really tough call, and he said the little 8-year-old girl, if there's a bigger Alabama fan that lives, he can't imagine who it would be, and he feels as a grandfather, I know you can relate to this, I have 3 10-year-old granddaughters myself. I can't imagine the helplessness he has to be feeling right now. So he asked the little girl, what is something you want that she calls him Poppy, that Poppy could do for you? And she said, Poppy, I would sure love to see an Alabama football player. So in his conversation to me, I don't think it necessarily has to be a current player or, but I've been cussing you when you was writing for the Post Herald, and I've loved you since you put on the radio and the television, but I don't know, because I'm from Tuscaloosa, he thought he could call me, and I guess I could, call Nick Saban up and say, hey, we need somebody to go to Children's Hospital. It don't work that way.
Clark, it's remarkable. I was actually across the street from that hospital Saturday visiting a friend, and I wish I'd known. I could have, because I was with a bunch of former players that night. Before you, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Give us your number. Okay. I'm going to put you on hold here in a second, and then we will try and facilitate something. How about that?
Hey, Paul, that would be great. I can't thank you enough if you can, because this is a great guy that I'm talking about, and he through our friendship reached out to me, and I've been in Tuscaloosa all my life, and I've been around a lot of the different aspects of the athletic department, and have known a lot of them through the years, personally. But I've kind of aged out,
I understand. Well, I'd say once we get your number, it's going to be at least we have a chain of command or communication, and we'll see what we can do, and have them get back in touch with you, and then you can coordinate it. But we really appreciate your call. I'm not going to hang up on you. I'm going to put you on hold, and we are going to take a short break here. More phone calls at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. Glad you are here. So good to have you. Michael is up next. Michael, good afternoon.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Michael. How's everything going?
Great. Thank you for taking my call. Couple of things, Paul. First off, I have a lot of pain due to orthopedic issues, and it's intractable most of the time. And one way to deal with that is to find meaningful distractions, and your show provides that.
Well, that's number one. I'm terribly sorry to hear about your issues, but I am glad that we are helping in some small way.
Well, I'm grateful, and I want to thank anyone who has anything to do with bringing your show, because I know I'm not the only one who benefits from that, and I'm grateful. And number two, I have an on-Bud's question for about something Big Dog Matt said from Georgia. Did I understand him to say that it was Alabama that turned Ole Miss in the other day during one of his rants?
Michael, I apologize for asking you to repeat that. I was distracted by something.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What did Matt said what?
Did I understand that Matt said that Alabama, when he was talking about Alabama wanting to hire Hugh Freeze and taking the moral high ground, did I understand him to say that it was Alabama that turned Ole Miss into the NCAA? It was my understanding it was Mississippi State. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I can't remember what he said about that, but he would not be the final word. I think in the end, the allegations were certainly more directed south than east.
I think so. And two, also, I think a lot of people are trying to reach for a cliche when talking about Dabo, because it's assumed that you don't want to be the coach following the coach. But I don't think that that's necessarily would apply to Dabo Swinney. I think people,
I agree,
a lot of times say that maybe out of fear of continuation and possibly even the ability and time to exceed what Coach Saban.
You know, Michael, I agree with you, and I've covered those transitions before, especially following Coach Bryant. But if it happened today, I would probably agree. But let's look into a crystal ball 5 years from now. What if Dabo Swinney has won another national championship? What if Alabama hasn't? It makes it easier. And you know, whenever Nick Saban retires, whether it's tomorrow or 10 years from now, he still has the most incredible record we've ever seen. But you don't know what the circumstances are, and you don't know what Dabo is going to do. And you don't right now. Dabo's got the ideal administration. Maybe that will change. The athletic director there came from Georgia Tech. Maybe he'll decide to leave and go somewhere else. Maybe the president will change. Maybe there'll be you just cannot predict the future other than to try and speculate. And all I was doing when it came up on this program about Dabo is I was just simply relating what I saw with my own eyes, Dabo being embraced by 1,500 Alabama citizens and him getting caught up in that moment, which, by the way, anyone would and anyone will. But he will still be, even if it's 5 years from now, he'll still be a very young man. And for someone to say, well, he won't be able to match Nick Saban's record, well, no, probably not. That doesn't mean he can't make a run at it.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think until Mama calls, it's going to be hard to tell, but I do think one day that he's going to get that call. And
well, I don't think there's any doubt within a reasonably short period of time he will get that call. And I know that. And hey, by the way, Michael, best wishes to you. I hope you'll stay in touch with us.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much.
But again, no, you cannot predict. I've learned. Don't ever. By the way, I made an absolute statement 4 months ago. He'll never go after seeing him in that environment Saturday night. All I'm saying is he probably won't go, but he could. Now that I've talked out of both sides of my mouth, let me go back to the calls and talk to someone who never does that, and that is I-Man.
And a great afternoon. First off, I like to tip my hat to the last two callers, especially the one with his friend's granddaughter.
Absolutely.
The good thing about the SEC, and I'm sure this is where all across the country, there are no shortage of football players that wouldn't jump at the chance to do what he has. And that's just the way it is. Everybody's always out there willing to help, do what they can, and that's what I love about this show, because there's so many. You hear those stories all the time, and you were talking about a good call, a great call, or whatever. Paul, I don't think a good call is any of those things you and Squirrel were talking about, or John, or anybody. I think it's not great. It's not sapient. It's not smart. A good call is it's just, you don't know what it is. It just happens. And
well, you know what I think a good call is, I-Man, because I feel like I'm in a position to judge. It's just someone that has a conversation, that doesn't read from a script, that doesn't talk over the host, that doesn't scream. I mean, but maybe they do scream, but that just has something to say.
This is what really screws up a call. When it's scripted, people try to be entertainers and go off the chain as to who they aren't. They need to be real, and if they happen to have a comedic value, that's just one of those things that fits. But it doesn't always work when you try to make it. It just happens. It's a freshman making a 17-foot 4-inch putt. It's a guy that pops the baseball over the shortstop's head, and the guy comes in and scores a winning run. It just happens. And it has everything
You're absolutely right about that.
With the timing of what's actually taking place on the show. A good call
you just said something important, man. You know what? One day maybe we'll just have a caller seminar, but I think a good caller needs to be adaptable. And I realize you may call an hour ago wanting to talk about the NFL draft, but if we're talking about something else, it's better if you can move with the program than just completely ignore an hour of conversation and just stay on your own topic.
Well, and that's what's wrong with a lot of the cookie cutter shows out there today. It's 23 minutes of this, 17 minutes of that. It changes topics, and I think all of your better known callers, your regulars, for the lack of a better word, everybody's had a great call. Everybody has had good calls. There's people that nobody even knows. There's been good calls all the time.
Oh, I don't know. I can think of a couple of people that have never had a good call.
Well, but at least they had one call that was better than the other 99. And I don't think a good caller has to call back 3 or 4 times a day. I think
the only way to measure a good caller, I-Man, is if they call at least 6 times a day. Well, I forgot. We're only talking about one person there.
We're just one person, and he likes those big words. But it is what it is. But Paul, I love this show because it's entertaining. It's entertaining to me, and it makes me laugh, and it makes me smile. And I'm like everybody else. I'm tired, overworked, all those kind of things. I live life, and I've lived it for a while. But it's fun. This show is fun, and on its worst day, it's better than 99% of the other folks out there on the airwaves. Have a great day.
Meanwhile, keeping up with a great Twitter feud right now between John Hayes and Darriel. Worth the price of admission. We'll take a short break. Tammy will join us in the next half hour. That's right, Tammy alert. Also, Charles Davis, former Tennessee Vol, now Fox broadcaster, will get his take on the NFL draft. Coming up next.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
I'm a one-trick pony. Literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter. When Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la. Aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
A lot of things are happening, both at the University of Tennessee, our next guest's alma mater, as well as the NFL draft. Our good friend Charles Davis from Fox. Charles, it's been too long. How are you, my man?
I'm doing well, Paul. It's great to hear your voice again, and I think I know what the deal is. I've got to get back to calling college football games to talk with you more, right?
Yeah, listen, I know you've got a great gig, but we really miss you in the college football space, as we say. Let's start with college football for a second,
Sure.
Especially at your alma mater. Philip Fulmer is back, and he hired Jeremy Pruitt. Most people seem pretty happy.
Yeah, and I don't think that is incorrect at all. In fact, with all the twists and turns and trials and tribulations to get to Jeremy Pruitt, in a lot of ways, I think people feel like Tennessee may have come out ahead. Now, I just want you to know that on the record, I thought that Greg Schiano, in a lot of ways, was exactly what my university needed. We've gotten to be I was never the toughest guy that's ever played the game. I'm a lot tougher than what people think, but I wasn't this hard-nosed, stone killer type guy. And I had a few teammates that were, like all good teams. But I think overall, the toughness factor of the Tennessee Vols is you could question it a little bit in recent years, especially last season. And Schiano would have brought that to the university. I thought he got a raw deal in a lot of ways because the reason that he didn't get hired was for some trumped-up report that he's not even really in. But moving on from there, to end up with a Jeremy Pruitt who understands the SEC very well, who understands winning football. I had two very prominent Alabama alums that are in the NFL come to me privately and say, listen, do you know him? And I said, I've not had the pleasure of meeting Jeremy Pruitt, which to me, Paul's an upset in and of itself. There's someone that I didn't know. I know of him, but we haven't met. And that sounds arrogant, but you understand where I'm coming from.
Sure.
And the second part of it is, they said, okay, when you get to know him, I think you're going to be very happy he's your head coach. And they articulated their various reasons why. So I've got nothing but high hopes for him. I'm rooting hard for him in my alma mater because it's time for us to get back in the game. All right? We should have been in the game in 2015 and 16, and those were opportunities that were laid on a silver platter that were not realized.
Great stuff from Charles Davis. Charles, let's flip to the draft. And, there's so many angles to hit, but I want to ask you first about Baker Mayfield. Certainly, that was the biggest topic of conversation and quite a bit of dissent. Where are you on him?
I had him as my number 2 quarterback going into draft night, Paul. I had Sam Darnold ahead of him. I just thought that Darnold, with a redshirt sophomore, just a tad more size, a little more of that so-called upside. But I don't know that Baker Mayfield has maxed out everything. I think that, this kid, how angry he plays. But there's one thing about him. When the game's on the line, he gets it done. Go back and look at all these quarterbacks and see what they did in the fourth quarter of games during their college career. And far and away, fourth quarter, and I'm talking about games that are in question, one-score type games, Mayfield's numbers dwarf all the other quarterback contenders we had in there. There is something to that. There is something to a kid when the game's on the line gets it done. And I think we saw him do that in Knoxville to my Volunteers, a couple seasons ago. He's done it to a number of teams. Yeah, he's a 2-time so-called walk-on, but don't let that fool you. And everybody's worried about the size. Well, Fran Tarkenton, Drew Brees, Michael Vick, he's got more size than them. Okay, so let's get over that part of it. Accurate, throwing the football, competitive to the nth degree, and the unfortunate side for him, Paul, and I'll conclude here, is that with Cleveland picking him, he's got to do it like Maverick in Top Gun. Remember they told Maverick?
Oh, sure.
You've got to do it cleaner and better than anyone else because your name's not the greatest in the Navy, son. And he's got to do that strictly because any bump he has, the first word he's going to hear is Manziel. And he's been trying to avoid that comparison for many reasons. But if that's what's going to happen, then in that case, then Cleveland loses. So he's got to just be Mr. Focused, stay out of trouble, no issues whatsoever, just play ball. But the first time he has a bump, you'll hear Manziel, Manziel, Manziel. And truthfully, it's not a good comparison to begin with. It's not accurate, but it's one he would have to live with.
Changing gears, it could have been worse, but it's hard to imagine the fall that Darius Geis took from at one time being the best running back projected in the SEC, a Heisman candidate. What is your sense on having seen him play at LSU and how he ended up going down to the 59th player?
Yeah, I liked him. I think everyone liked him better 2 years ago when he actually stood in for Leonard Fournette. That was when he was at his most dynamic, Paul. And he actually suffered a little bit of what Fournette did his last year. Some dings, right? So he couldn't be the same Lamborghini he had been the year before. But he's thicker and bigger than probably what I think people thought. I think, when he was there and Fournette was there, he looked like a sylph next to Fournette, but don't most of us? And then you realize this is a pretty well put together young man, and he can play. And his fall is not because of the on-field talent. He ran into some bumps off-field in some meetings with teams, in some interpersonal relations, in some things that teams didn't like about what was going on with him, and that started it. In fact, I feel bad because we talked about it on his draft night, which was the second round, and my colleague Mike Mayock had just gotten done articulating why he was still on the board. And the way the draft moves, you don't often have enough time to flesh out everything, so I felt horrible. But my next question was going to be, well, Mike, if it's that bad, how far is this going to go? And do you realize, Paul, he was the very next pick by Washington?
That's amazing.
So the kicker to all of this is, and this is an absolute straight-on-the-table truth, at one point, my last mock draft, I had written in the name Darius Geis at 13 to the Washington Redskins in the first round.
That's amazing.
And I wasn't alone, I don't believe. The reason I did that was because I knew Washington really needed a runner. That was a big deal for them. And there was a lot of discussion about them going against the grain. So it just ended up working out that he went there. But they need a runner in a big way. And I figured he was one of the top, 2-3 running backs in this draft. It made sense, and I thought that he fit them a little bit better than maybe Sony Michel did.
And now, let's state the obvious. Alabama had 12 players taken. I think I read today 5 other players signed free agents. That doesn't mean they'll play. That just means that someone thought they were at least good enough to sign. That's 17. Charles, I mean, I know it's a cliche to say, how does this team ever lose? Well, they really don't lose very often. No. But still.
Yeah, and here's the thing about it, too, Paul. Think of it in terms of this. It's not an accident that it happens year in and year out. And when we talk about the best teams every year in terms of the number of players going into the draft, as a general rule, we're talking about the same teams every year, aren't we? Alabama, Ohio State, right? USC. People who put these guys out there, these programs that are stable, churn guys out. But you just mentioned the free agent number of guys. Don't be surprised if a number of those guys make teams. Because the one thing about Alabama kids, yes, they are 5-star recruits. Yes, they are some of the best in the country. But while they're at Alabama, they get coached really well. I mean, and that's one of the things I think that drives Coach Saban just a little bit crazy. Because if you ask scouts around the NFL, one of the things they'll say when you go, well, you got to tell me something that you worry about with an Alabama kid. You know what they always say, Paul? I don't know that there's any more jumps they can make. They've already they've coached them as high and as hard as they can. I think what you see is what you get. Well, what you see is what you get is usually a 5, 7, 10-year player in the NFL is going to be pretty darn good. That's awfully nice to have. They always talk about floor and ceiling in scouting. But the Alabama kids' floors are almost always higher than most people's, even if their ceiling isn't as high because they think they've been coached so well. That's a pretty good credit to the Alabama staff and how they do things.
It's amazing. Charles, it is always a pleasure. Wish we could find you more often, but you work for some network that we can't ever seem to get through to you. But we appreciate your time, as always.
You got it, Paul. I'll give you the private number, okay? We can talk any other time.
Please do, Charles.
All right. Thank you.
Great to have you on. Charles Davis, one of the best out there, former Tennessee Vol, now with Fox, of course. And we are going to take a break. More to come. If you're with us during the intermission here between commercials, we are going to have another caller list revealed. Also, Tammy coming up here in the next few minutes.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the show. And Tammy is next.
Hey, Paul, I want to clear up something from Michael from Athens right quick, please. I want to clear up Michael. Yes, Alabama had something to do with Ole Miss and Hugh Freeze. There's no doubt. I don't even know why people keep calling Paul Show and asking. You know it. He knows it, and he won't admit it because, you know, I got a man crush on Sabernator down there and everybody else down there. So don't be calling in here no more. We all know that Houston Nuts and Nick Saban's attorney or whatever y'all want agent is the same man, and they worked together and got done because Ole Miss beat Alabama 2 years in a row, and they could not handle it. That's the reason it all went down. Because
hey, by the way, Tammy, do you know that the NCAA investigation into Ole Miss began before Ole Miss beat Alabama?
No, it did not.
Yes, it did.
There was nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong with Ole Miss.
Hate to break it to you, Tammy, but the original investigation began before that, and then the second investigation occurred after Laramie Tunsil appeared on draft night with a bong.
Well, then I'll tell you, in that
mask,
case, Houston Nutt lied because Houston Nutt would have been involved in the first investigation.
Well,
so why would
Tammy,
he turn it around?
You don't know what you're talking about, but that's not a new story here. That is not breaking news.
Well, let me go on about this little 12-man Alabama draft thing. Let me tell you something. Y'all had that just about every year for the last 5 or 6 years, and you can't name but 3 or 4 on this playing out of the 5th, I think you got 40 or 45 in the last 4 or 5 years.
Tammy, do not show your ignorance by making a statement like that,
you
okay?
go ahead and tell me right now in the last 6 years how many you've had. Go ahead, don't you put it on your screen, too.
Well, I'll ask Randy and John, but I'll probably start with Tammy. I'll probably start with Julio Jones. John, you want to throw in an Alabama player?
That is the only one that you can say has played ever since he left Alabama. He has played every year. Julio Jones, you're right. Now name me another one.
There's a lot of great young Alabama players in the NFL, Tammy. Come on.
There's some playing, but I'm talking about playing. I don't care how many got drafted. I want you to tell me how many playing.
Okay. Have you ever heard of a man named Tammy? Have you ever heard of a man called Landon Collins, an all-pro safety that plays for the New York Giants? You know where he went to school?
Where?
He went to Alabama.
Yeah, well, he's probably how old? Are we talking about the last 5 years? Come on. I'm talking last 5 or 6 years Nick Saban's been there. How many of them playing?
Tammy, let's go. Let's do another one here, Tammy. Mark Ingram.
Mark Ingram won a national title. Now he's with the Saints.
They had a pretty good year last year.
I think he's pretty good. I think I went to the Pro Bowl, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I did go to the Pro Bowl. Ding, 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 ding.
He's been gone how long? He's been gone how long? And he finally got
Well, he left in 2010.
Henry might be another one. You might hear
Derrick
his
Henry
name.
is another one.
That's right. 3. You can name 3.
What about Clinton Dix? I think he was an All-Pro, wasn't he?
And another thing, y'all must talk about
Amari Cooper's not bad, is he?
We'll see how many play. We'll see how many play. We'll
just
see how
gave
many
you.
of them that play. You call out 12. You put them up there. And let's see how
We've
many.
just given you 7 or 8 names. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
By the way, C.J. Mosley's been All-Pro a couple of times. You ever heard of him?
Yeah, I know Mosley.
Tammy, do you even watch football?
You ever heard of Eddie Lacy?
Yeah, I watch dang football.
You ever heard of Dante Hightower?
And another thing, y'all right about Darriel. Darriel ain't no caller. And he don't even go. He wouldn't even go to a Georgia game if it knocked him in the face and somebody gave him a free kick. I bet he ain't never been to a Georgia game while he sits up in here and tries to call about Georgia. He reads it all on the internet while he's sitting over there in the darn.
Hey, Tammy, how many Auburn players have been
playing the guitar?
Hey, how many Auburn players can you name over the last 5 years?
Well, one that's playing or
not
one
named
that's
Cam
been there
Newton.
for years that you can call.
You're the one that started this, Tammy. I've given you about 12.
Okay, Cam.
15,
I'll give you
Cam graduated. Well, excuse me. Cam left Auburn in 2010. He later went back and graduated.
I know, but what I'm saying is, like I said, I ain't talking about it. I know we can't name none, but the ones that's playing for Auburn, that there's a bunch of them playing for Auburn, and their names are calling. But
Tammy, can we agree on one thing? Can we agree on one thing?
What?
You have more hate in your body for the University of Alabama that is really humanly possible. It's not. It's bad for your health, Tammy. Get it out. Expurgate it from your body, okay?
Oh, I ain't no doubt I ain't supposed to hate.
I mean, I want you to expunge this Alabama hate, okay? Let it out. Throw it up. I don't care how you get rid of it.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. A lot of tweets out there. We want to share this with the audience because, Randy Heritage coming under vicious attack right now by Jim from Tuscaloosa. This is just out on Twitter from the real Jim from Tuscaloosa. For those listening on radio, Finebaum's fools, these ignorant Yankees, John Hayes, truly weird redneck Randy are buffoons. Talks about Squirrel and I-Man and all the dunces that have torn down what Shane, me, Legend, a few others built to pass fame. It is embarrassing now. Randy, I've got to ask you this. Randy Heritage is sitting in today. Redneck Randy, truly weird Redneck Randy?
Yeah, the weird part, that's an unnecessary shot.
That's Michelle Wolf right there.
Yeah, that's Michelle Wolf's shot. But I made the comment to John Hayes, Jim from Tuscaloosa is calling me a redneck? That made me chuckle. That made me chuckle a little bit.
That would be the definition of irony.
Yeah, complete irony. And I don't know. I can take it. I'm in television.
You haven't made it on the show until you're mercifully.
Yep,
that's accurate.
Ripped by Jim in Tuscaloosa.
Yes,
mercilessly.
That's
what Dan Z tells me in my ear.
That's not bad. Mercilessly, who cares?
So I guess I have finally made it. I have my place in the Paul Finebaum Show lore.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank all my fans, especially Jim from Tuscaloosa.
Truly weird.
And by the way, Randy, if you're thinking about following Jim, you're already blocked.
Perfect. My life's complete now.
Drew in Montclair, New Jersey. What do you say, Drew?
Hey, Paul. It's been a while since I called on Tuesday, but it took you guys 45 minutes to get to pick up the phone and say hi, Drew.
Oh, my goodness. Now, Drew. How old are you, Drew?
10.
You've got so much life left, too, and you're already complaining.
So when I was over the phone, when I was about to call him, how come they said I couldn't talk about basketball?
Well, first of all, I don't know who answers the phone, but I can tell you one thing, Drew. Any person that tells a caller to this program what they can and can't talk about shouldn't be here.
Well,
a caller to this show should be able to talk about anything they choose to talk about.
So one of my questions was, what is your biggest caller who calls like 10 times a day? Who would it be? I think it's honestly Darriel from Columbus, Georgia.
So you like Darriel, right?
No, I don't have an opinion on him, but I'm just saying he calls like 4 times a day, right?
Well, no, that's not. I mean, he usually calls once. Today he called back twice. We don't know why. So you're a fairly new listener to the show. You're only 10.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find us, by the way?
Well, I was looking up. I was on SEC Network because I was like, at first I was like, what is SEC Network? And then I saw like all the ads for teams like Tennessee and Auburn and Georgia and all that, and I was like, well, what is this about? And then I saw this show, and then I continued to watch it every day. So that's how I'm here.
So you obviously you like the show, or
yeah.
Okay, so you've been listening, watching how long now?
for about 2 months at least.
Okay, so you're 10 years old. You've been watching for 2 months. Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you to rank, but in terms of callers that you get something out of, who would they be?
I don't even pay attention to what they're saying, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't really care for any of the callers?
No. But my question was, who is the biggest, everyday caller?
I thought I asked you that question, but you didn't answer it. It depends. Drew, right now, you may be well on your way to becoming the best caller on the show. You're so objective. You're fair-minded.
I'm talking about, that's definitely true, and thank you for saying that. But,
you're
but
humble.
What I'm looking for is a person who, who calls the most on the show?
I think Darriel, the guy from Georgia, what's his name? Matt, he calls a lot. I-Man calls. He's a regular caller. Squirrel's a regular caller. Bobby. Millie. Do you know Millie?
No. I know all those guys except for Millie.
Millie is an elderly woman who calls in from Missouri.
Now,
elderly to you would be 25?
Yeah.
What age group do you consider old right now at 10?
Anything above 60.
Oh, yeah.
There's half the callers.
Yeah. So 60 is pretty much archaic, right?
Yeah.
Well, by the way, I agree with you on that.
I think it's crazy, though, that
by the way, should 60-year-olds be allowed to live, or should they just be sent off to some camp?
No, they should still be living.
Okay. They shouldn't be sent to, a senior camp.
No. That's if you're really, really old. But when I was watching
By the way,
the show,
how old are your parents, Drew?
I think I don't even pay attention to that, but I think 45 and 47.
Hey, look, Drew, I just asked you how old your parents were, and you say you don't pay attention. I think at
they're
45, your parents, okay?
Yeah.
By the way, do you have grandparents?
Yes.
And they would be in their 60s or 70s?
Yeah, most of them are in their early 70s or late 60s.
They're okay, aren't they?
Yeah.
I bet, yeah.
Well, one actually lives
10-year-old.
in Montclair, and when a snowstorm came, the tree fell on her car. This was in February, and it's taking these people forever to fix her car. It's ridiculous.
Now, whose car got injured? Yours?
No, our grandma's.
Grandma. But now, do they live in New York or near you?
Jersey, right in Montclair.
Montclair, sure. Everybody lives in Montclair.
Well, what I was going to say, a few minutes ago, but that one lady from Alabama, she came in with such a bad attitude.
The Tammy?
Yeah. Why was she arguing? Why was she dissing Alabama and whatnot?
Well, she hates Alabama.
Why? But that's where that's where she lives.
Yeah. Well, you have not gotten to this point in your life yet, Drew. You're 10, but she's an Auburn fan, and she's tired of being ridiculed or losing to Alabama, even though they did beat Alabama this year. So she has this hate. Don't follow Tammy's lead, okay? Be a positive person.
Yeah.
It's like mentor a kid day for me.
About basketball was, how long does it take them to find out the schedule in the SEC or just in the NCAA in general?
Well, the football schedules are already made. The basketball schedules for next year probably have not been complete. Basketball schedules usually run pretty late.
Wait, but are they probably finding them out now?
You're pretty close. By the end of the spring, you know your basketball schedule. Hey, by the way, do you play basketball? Is your sport, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, I was asking if I wanted to know what the the LSU football schedule was.
Wow. Okay.
Is it easy or is it hard or is it
the LSU football schedule is extremely difficult.
Oh, well, let me see it as it pops up on the screen.
Yeah.
Well, I know they're playing Alabama, right?
Okay, you'll get it in about 7 seconds. It takes that long for the horse to gallop all the way to Montclair, New Jersey. Let me know when you get it.
So if I'm in, okay, So if I'm in Montclair, if I'm in Alabama, it will only take like a second, right?
Actually, it takes the same amount of time to go everywhere.
Really?
Not to teach you about television, Drew, but what's this, going up in a signal?
Hits the satellite.
Okay, it like leaves our camera. It leaves our camera right here, and it goes up to a satellite in space.
Okay.
And then it comes back down. Now, I see it in real time because I'm here, but it takes, about 7? It takes about 7 seconds to go up into outer space and then back into are you on cable or satellite?
Cable.
Okay. So,
right.
Same thing.
It's not on the screen anymore. It's not on the screen anymore.
Well, that's okay, Drew. We actually decided to remove it. That's okay,
Why?
Isn't it? Why?
Why? I wasn't like reading it. I'm gonna rewind it actually on the
no, Drew, it's back now, okay?
All right. So you said the first game's against Miami. Now, usually a good college football team, their first game will be against a team like Austin P or I don't know, Grambling State, or a very easy team. But no, they're starting with Miami.
That is a very tough game, Drew. You would agree with me, right?
I don't even know what SC Louisiana is. Auburn hard, Louisiana Tech hard, Ole Miss is okay, Florida's okay.
That's Southeast Louisiana. Right, Drew, I don't mean to interrupt, because you obviously follow the SEC and I don't, but Miami's a difficult game. At Auburn is a really tough game. At Florida will be tough. Georgia will be brutal. Alabama,
that's going to be brutal, too.
Yeah. Okay.
The only really easy ones are going to be Rice and Louisiana. That's about it.
Yeah, probably Southeast Louisiana will be manageable.
And there's about 14 games in total, right?
I suspect Louisiana. Drew, I hate to run. I know you're. What's on tap tonight? What are you doing?
Well, probably going to watch the NBA playoffs, and I already ate dinner, so I'm going to probably have some pistachio ice cream.
Hold on a second. Pistachio ice cream I like, by the way. It's 5:12 in New York.
Yeah.
And you've already eaten dinner?
Yeah. It happens every once in a while.
What did you have tonight?
Let me think. Yeah, spaghettis and meatballs.
Wow.
Spaghettis and meatball.
So tonight you'll have pistachio ice cream with the game?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a quick question. Where is your main studio located?
Okay. The studio we're currently in is coming out of Charlotte, North Carolina. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, Charlotte, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bud. Didn't mean to keep you. We've created a whole new generation of Finebaum callers. They start early. We will take a break. That's what you have to look forward to over the next 30 years on this show. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. Been a busy afternoon on Twitter. Jim from Tuscaloosa tweeting again. He's like Trump. He just tweets a lot. Hard to believe, but now I don't believe Finebaum recognizes how bad this current TV product is. Must be delusional denial. Oh, wasn't Drew so good? A couple of emojis there. Okay, let's go back to the calls at 855. Even though we're being ridiculed, we're going to finish the show. Whether we're back again tomorrow, according to Jim, I don't know. 855-242-7285. That is our number. And let's check in with, let me come back to this. John in Louisville. Hey, John, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul. Pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.
For a few years, enjoyed your show, and enjoy listening to your knowledge. It's just great on football.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Anyways, I was up in Detroit area for a wedding over the weekend, and I've got two questions about. Oh, by the way, Deshaun Robinson is another Alabama player starting. Bell.
You're absolutely
right. But anyways,
about that.
I was up in Detroit area, and I was visiting, and I saw this story about, I guess, Michigan, the football team visiting France, first in Paris, and then they took the 3-hour bus ride over to Normandy Beach, kind of like that movie, Remember the Titans.
Right.
And one of the things they did is they honored a soldier who happened to go to, remember, well, his name was Thomas Howie.
Right.
He went to Citadel, and he wrote this letter to his daughter, and it was just so special. I happened to Google it up after they honored him, the Michigan team. And if I could read it, 6 sentences, I think you might enjoy it. Okay. He wrote to his daughter, 4 days ago I was placed in command of some 850-odd officers and men, a war-strength battalion with all its weapons, vehicles, and equipment, and the responsibility of someday committing them to battle, perhaps from which a number may not return, is a fearful thought. If that day should ever arrive, I hope I shall be as proud of them as I am of you, and I hope they will be well led. I cannot honestly say that I hope I shall never have that privilege and responsibility. It's something like football. Somebody has to play the game, somebody has to beat the enemy. In all my life, I've tried to make the first team in everything. Sitting on the bench when game time comes is no consolation for weeks of bruising drudgery. I know I did some bench sitting initially in everything I set my heart on. And I've been sitting on the bench and training hard for almost 3 years now. Remember what I told you. Sit up straight, look people in the eye, and tell the truth. With all my heart, your daddy. And he died in battle, and his battalion carried his body into St. Lo, flag draped, and laid it next to the church, and they went on and fought the Germans. And I thought, what a great story on life and on football. And I just thought,
and Harbaugh's team, they honored him. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, the team pulled out some flags and they held a ceremony just for this one gentleman.
Yeah, I want to say this, John, and listen, I've had a lot to say about Jim Harbaugh, and there's quite a record to support that. But I said this last year on ESPN. I'll say it again today. I thought what he did last year, taking his team to Rome, and it was extraordinary. It was educational. It was something that to me is the embodiment of what a well-rounded education should be. And I thought the meeting with the Pope was just heart-wrenching. And I would say the same thing about this. Every school can't do this. I think Harbaugh is unique in this way. I think these young men are getting the education of a lifetime, and stories like yours, I think, bring it home. And I happen to be a big fan of what he's doing here. And I know a lot of people out there want to throw rocks at us and saying that's all we ever do is criticize Jim Harbaugh. That is not true. This is one place where I think Jim Harbaugh has been a trailblazer.
No, I think you're always fair and candid, and I just thought what a humbling experience for these young men to walk around a.
No, I agree. I've never been there, and everyone has that list, John, of places that they would like to. And I've been to France. I was unable to get over to Omaha Beach, but it's someplace that we all have relatives that fought there or know someone who does have relatives, and I give Jim a lot of credit for doing this.
Yeah, I guess you could put it this way. It was so humbling for them to see men of their same age who fought for something bigger than themselves.
That is such a good... Listen, I am so happy you called and shared that with us.
I have two questions. Because I was up there and saw the draft, apparently the Lions picked up running back Kerryon Johnson and also Deshaun Hand from Alabama. I remember Deshaun Hand being one of the top recruits in the nation years ago. What do you think of those two players?
Yeah, I mean, if you had told me before the season that Deshaun Hand would have gone at that point of the draft, I would have been shocked. I don't know the circumstances, but I do know he's a really good player. And Kerryon Johnson, I would say something similar. He was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year last year. He carried that team on his back. And because he was injured, I think it put Auburn at a disadvantage in the SEC championship game. I think you got two great players there.
Well, good for them. Just a pleasure to speak with you. And that young man you had on earlier, he quite impressive for a 10-year-old versus some of the other guests you have on the show, I'll tell you that.
That would be one of the most charitable statements I've ever heard, John. Thank you. Be well.
God bless.
What a great call. What an incredible call. Johnny is in Orlando. Go right ahead, Johnny.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are doing well. Thank you.
Well, good. Paul, I wanted just to ask you a question, but I want to comment on what Jimbo Fisher said. I saw it over the weekend. He had made a statement that he's glad he's in Texas and he's in the best state for recruiting football talent. And basically, I don't know if that is true. Because if you take Texas and take Florida, Texas is 3 times the size of Florida. And I do not know how many teams in the SEC. I know Alabama and Clemson, Clemson in the ACC, but they're loaded with Florida players. Every college is. So I would,
listen, Florida is one of the richest recruiting states in the country.
Yes, it is. And he said the same thing, by the way, when he was an assistant coach with Florida State and then promoted to head coach. He said the same thing about Florida. But anyway,
sometimes Johnny, you just have to come up with something new to say, and I'm sure that's what he's doing.
Oh yeah, and that's what he did. He was playing to the crowd.
Sure, we all do.
But I wanted to just say something about Darriel. I've been on the phone for quite a while, and Darriel came on, and I was trying to think of something intelligent and that would work.
Yeah,
and
I bet you couldn't.
It came hard, okay? And so I got 2 words, okay? I got presentation and delivery. When he asked, say something smart, I would say presentation and delivery. Because I'm a government major. I majored in political science.
Oh, my goodness.
We had a lot of political debate. And you better be factual on what you're debating. Because the people you're debating, they have their own facts. And you just better be straight up with it, and tell the truth. And I would just say that to Darriel. I don't know the man, but I think that if he'd slow down, listen to you as you ask questions, and if he would answer as intelligent as he can these questions, and when he presents something out to you, maybe he would look at his presentation and his delivery. That's all I have to say, Paul. Thank you. God bless you.
Oh, 2 great calls in a row. We are up against a break. More to come. Another 90 minutes on our program. More guests as well. We've had some good ones already, and we are back after this.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a thrill.
I'm a one-trick pony. Literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter. When Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la. Aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Welcome back. Glad you're here. Good show going. Let's keep it. How about Mickey in Louisville? Hello, Mickey. Good afternoon to you.
Hey, Paul. I have a question about how schools like the Michigan football team, the Kentucky basketball team, are allowed to take their teams abroad without other teams like ladies basketball and all these other teams being offered the same benefit.
Okay, and basketball is a little bit different. There are certain provisions that allow you to go outside of the continental United States X number of times. I think Kentucky's been to the Bahamas. They've been overseas to China. I can't remember. I think it's you can't do it every year, but and I think there is some procedure you have to go through with the NCAA. What Harbaugh is doing is unique because no one had ever done this before. I'm confident. I can't remember the specific rider that went into this, but they ran it by the NCAA, and it was perfectly legal to do what they are doing. It started 2 years ago or 3 years ago when they went to Florida for a week. Then last year. If Kentucky wanted to go spend a week of practice in Russia, they could do it. I would imagine, as long as you go through the proper hoops.
Well, they're going to the Bahamas this year.
Right.
A second question is why did Bruce Pearl get punished for having recruits to his house and get fired? And
that I can
Nick
answer,
Saban
Mickey.
Huh?
Hold on a second. I think I know where you're going. In Bruce Pearl's case, what he did was a violation. He had a recruit over for a barbecue. He didn't get fired over that. He got fired for one reason. He lied about it. He misled his bosses. He misled everyone. Had Bruce Pearl told the truth, he said, yep, had this kid in my house Friday night for a barbecue. He may have lost a kid. He may not have. He may have sat out a game. He may not have. He would not have been fired. It was one of the stupidest things anyone has ever done, to lie about something that wasn't really that important. Saban and every other coach have players to their houses there are legal recruiting weekends that you can do that. In Bruce's case, I don't think it was within the parameters of a legal recruiting visit.
Okay. Thank you very much for the information.
Thank you very much. Really good to hear from you. Great call. Good questions. Ron is in Georgia, and you're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Yes, sir. I just wanted to first touch on Darriel. I actually am about 50 feet away from Sanford Stadium as we speak. Second-generation Bulldog after Friday, so I'm graduating this Friday, so I'm really excited about that.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. And I really just wanted to talk about Darriel and Tammy and Jim and some of this ignorance that they've been spreading. I think that callers should have knowledge of the sport. And I think that Tammy not knowing more than two prominent players in the NFL from Alabama is ridiculous. I think callers like that shouldn't belong on the show. And I agree with, similar to Johnny Boy, I graduated with a political science degree, so I think that, presentation is key. And for them to go on those rants, Darriel and Tammy, that I can't even understand them, honestly. And, I do condemn Darriel for his lack of knowledge and his ignorance, but I do not condemn him for his passion. Because I started out at this school with Hudson Mason as my quarterback. And, to come from him to have two number one quarterbacks, Fromm leading us down the field, you got Fields, and then you have a coach like Kirby Smart. To see that transformation occur has been truly special to me. And that's how a lot of Dog fans feel right now. And I do not think that Darriel represents us the best way. And I just wanted to kind of clear that up. And I just think we've came a very long way. And I think that's what it takes to be a good caller, is to have knowledge of the game and have passion, but you have to have a fair amount of both. Not too much of one, not too much of another. And I just have a couple quick questions regarding the draft. I was fortunate enough to go to the Rose Bowl this year, and Paul, it was a great game. As you know, it was a spectacle. It's the best game I've ever seen in my whole entire life. My freshman year, we played in the Belk Bowl, so I just think that this team has come such a far way, and draft what Kirby's done here as far as recruiting. And then the NFL draft this year, for us to have 5 guys go which hasn't happened in years, Paul. I'm sorry. I think that is just truly remarkable. And I mean, to see Baker, who I thought Baker was going to be the number one pick overall. The number one quarterback pick. I apologize. I think he has the intangibles, and I watched him play. I've watched him shred us up the first half of the Rose Bowl, and at halftime, I was a sad dog. I had my tail between my legs. I'll tell you that. But for Chubb and Sony to come down that field and do what they did and never give up, I think that is astonishing. And I give credit. I give credit where credit's due, and I think that credit really lies with Kirby Smart and the culture that he has instilled at Georgia. He's really done something remarkable. Can't you agree with me, Paul?
I do, totally, Ron. Hey, listen, well said. Congratulations again on your graduation this week. I know it's that time of the year. We appreciate it. More to come on a Monday afternoon. We're right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. Turkey Man is calling next. Welcome to our program, Turkey Man.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call today.
Thank you.
Hey, I don't call very often, call every once in a while, but your callers, I tell you, you have three that are my favorites. And of course, I like Phyllis. She brings a little edge to the show. And I like Fred from Plainto, Texas, the LSU fan.
Right.
I really like him. I think he's knowledgeable, and he's just a good person. From what he follows me on Twitter, I follow him. And, of course, Selena, she's very intelligent, and I enjoy those three. I think is three better callers for different reasons. And, I was going to ask you a question, and I will ask that question of what surprise you come out, the biggest surprise in the draft from the SEC, what you thought was the biggest surprise. But you had Charles on, and I love Charles, big time, Charles Davis. But I'd have to disagree with what he said about Sharano, or how you say his name, as being coach. I think toughness. I think we do need toughness, and I also think that Pruitt will bring that. But on the behalf of that particular person, he was saying would be good for the program. I disagree in the fact that Title IX that we went through, well, it was a disaster, and you reported it, and you know what's going on there. And to bring a coach with any kind of blemish or thought process in that direction into the program, if something bad happened, it'd be heck to pay, so to speak. And that was my take on that. But I'd like to hear your comments on those things, and thanks for taking my call.
Thank you very much. I thought Charles really handled it well. We both tended to agree on Darius Geis. Appreciate the call very much. Glad you're with us. More calls here, and Dan is in South Carolina. Dan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul. How are you?
We are doing well, thanks.
Good. Hey, I got two things. The young man who called in a few calls ago before the break from Athens, I'm pretty much picturing that he's in the same dorm that I lived in when I was there back during the Herschel Walker era, 50 feet or 50 yards away from Sanford Stadium, so that's pretty cool. But and I appreciate his knowledge of the Georgia lineup and all things that are going on there, which are great. But I think he was a little naive in his criticisms of the callers to your show. I think you've proven for a long, long time that these callers with their characters and the peculiarities and all that are really kind of what drives the show in a big way. And so I just want to advise him to, really pay attention to what drives a show like yours and what makes it great. Second thing.
One thing on that. Thank you for that. I really I cringe a little bit even when my friends or colleagues are criticizing callers. To me, the embodiment of this show has to do with everyone coming together. And, we have all kinds here because that's what this country is made up of. And you don't have to be able to spell to call in this show. We've proven that with Larry. I mean, people are people, and I think that's why this show has been successful. And I say it every day. It's because of people from all over the country calling in.
Well, yeah, and you have a great mix of really intelligent pundits, people who know the game, people who really study it, and then people who are just honestly passionate about it, and that really does make the mix. So second thing I had is I heard an interview with Laura Rutledge today on ESPN, another channel on ESPN satellite. I think you've had a lot to do with Laura's rapid progression up through the ranks at ESPN, and she clearly has some talent and is incredibly keen on what's going on around her, and she's very media savvy. But I would ask you, as a mentor of her, which I'm pretty sure you are, please talk to her about toning down the volume of words that come out when she's asked a question. And I think she's just got such a meteoric career ahead of her, but she's got to take a breath and relax a little bit and not have to just vomit it up all in one. She went 5 minutes today on the show without taking a breath.
Dan, thank you very much. I didn't hear it, but I'm proud of Laura. She's been incredible. We'll be back with more.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Bring your own guts. This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Final hour has arrived. A couple of guests coming up here. And we have Ken Smithmier on, the judgment expert. Ken is certainly one of the most knowledgeable people in the world, and we're going to get to him in a second. Before we do that, Casey O'Reilly, our golf pro friend from Jersey, look at this. Working a charity golf outing up there in Jersey today. Can't believe the weather was good enough. While golfers are out there, and when they come into the clubhouse, Finebaum Show is on. How about that? That is pretty cool. So I mentioned Ken Smithmier, our judgment expert. I always love to talk to Ken about any subject. Ken, before we get too deep, welcome back to the program. Always a thrill to have you.
Thank you. Good to be back. You know, I can't help but comment on that caller you had just before the end of the hour who had professional journalism advice for Laura.
Wow.
I mean, come on now. Anybody who listens to Laura very much or sees Laura very much, if they have any sense about them at all, doesn't say anything or think anything about the volume of words out of her mouth. But they say, holy cow, she's smart, she's articulate, and she knows what the heck she's talking about when she comes to sports. Can you imagine the arrogance of that guy to make a statement like that about her? Is he crazy? Bad judgment.
We believe he is, yes.
bad judgment. So listen, I was sitting out here in my patio in Nashville listening to your show with my wife, and suddenly it dawned on me that I listen to you and I watch your show as often as I can because I realize it's sort of like being a bystander over a big, busy freeway. And first of all, you know the wrecks are coming. You just don't know when, how bad. You got guys like Larry, kind of, drunk driving down a median. You got guys like Darriel and Jim ready to jump off the overpass in despair because you apparently don't love them anymore, like you used to. And there's entertainment value there. But I can tell you exactly what's going on with the Jims and the Darrells who are in a panic over this list. And Paul, I test people. And when I test people, I'm looking to see how they perform, and in particular, I'm looking to see how they perform under pressure. And for a lot of years, guys like Darriel have been on your team, just sort of very easily marching up and down the field, no competition. Then along come John and Mark with this list idea, and what's that put in? That puts in pressure. And we see people's behavior and their judgment change and go badly under pressure. And guys like Darriel and Jim, they don't know what to do about it. You listen to guys like Larry. Larry's still just being Larry, right? Doesn't faze him because he's so genuine. You can love him or hate him, but he is what he is. Probably the true same thing is true with Squirrel and I-Man, certainly young Drew. But guys like Darriel and Jim, that list has put pressure on them to perform. And in the face of pressure, they crack and they go off their rails. And it's no different than the coach who makes a bad call in the last 30 seconds of the game that's tied up, and the fans sit at home and go, what the heck is wrong with that guy? Where did his brain go? And Darrell's exhibit A, Paul. I mean, just exhibit A. I would love to test that guy, like get his data, and then we could do a show where we just dissect Darriel.
Help me understand when you're testing someone for pressure, that's a test. How do you? I mean, I'm not trying to give away your secret sauce, but how do you identify those who can and those who can't?
So here's what it is, and it's simple, but it's complicated. We have two big sections. One is what we call work side, or what we do. So that's you running the show, that's John producing, that's Darriel calling. That is a what we do thing. But what really helps us hold up is our self side, or who we are. That is our character layer. And when that character layer is weak, it's like a pretty house sitting on a cracked foundation. And when the rains come and that foundation comes under pressure, that foundation cracks and down it comes. Conversely, you get a guy with strong character. I talked on the phone with a guy today, 11 years in the NFL. His work side was a little bit weak, but very, very strong.
Jim, Ken, I want to jump in here because something interesting has happened. One of the, I'd say arguably the best known caller in the show's history, and someone who's been very critical of us, Jim from Tuscaloosa, would like to speak with you if that is permissible.
Oh, let's do it, Paul. Absolutely. I'm in, man.
You know, Mr. Smithmier, if you won't interrupt me, I'm going to try to straighten you out because you are a moron. You really are stupid. You know, not everyone, I'm looking at your picture now, not everyone is as dumb as they look, but you clearly are. How can you come in here and criticize me? I don't know about Darriel. I can only speak for me. For 11 or 12 years, I was the catalyst of this show. Finebaum told people he would let me talk on this show for 4 solid hours if I wanted to. I have been compelling, I'm smart, I'm sapient, and I'm electrifying, and I bring stuff that puts people on the edge of their seat because I know what I'm talking about, and I am diverse in what I say on different subjects. Who in the hell are you, a dumb-looking old man, to come in here and put me down in a most insane way? I don't know what to say. This is the most insane, but it's phony. I know it's phony, trying to pick up the business from Paul's show that is sunk drastically without me on the show, to be honest with you. And Paul's done everything he can to get me back. But you know what? For one day, for 130 minutes or whatever it is, you got me back, you moron. You got me back.
Paul, you hear him crack?
Let's see, I'm cracking.
You hear him crack, Paul?
Oh, listen, you. What the hell are you? What are you talking about? I'm cracking. You're like the people that diss Trump. All you can do is belittle the truth. That's all you've got. Give me something real. Give me something that I've done that's wrong. How am I cracking? I'm running all over you, you old moron. You're just dummy. You're a total. Look at that face. That's the face of an idiot. I see your squinty eyes, but what have you brought?
Hey Jim, can we allow Ken to at least say one thing here?
It's just crazy what this guy's saying.
So, Paul, notice, first of all, when people have no facts, they attack individuals. So that's what Jim lapses into. He calls me names. He criticizes how I look because he doesn't have any substance. And, in fact, the very histrionics that he's engaged in on the air right now simply support my data. That's all. I know the type. And this type, the first thing they do when they talk to me is scream at me how stupid I am, how stupid my system is, and I just let them go.
Why don't you talk to me, Ken? Are you afraid to talk to me? Why are you not talking to me? Why are you talking to Paul? I'm talking to you, sir. I'm telling you what an idiot you are.
Jim, it's a three-way conversation, I'm pretty sure.
Hey, Jim, would you? I've done this before. Laura,
tell him to let me talk
Jim.
to me, Paul.
Laura and I, Jim, John, Laura, and myself have all done this. Would you be willing to take Ken's judgment test?
Hey, no, Paul, I'd rather take something from a damn Bryce Hospital patient. I'm not going to take a test from this fool. No, that's ridiculous.
Paul, I could have told you his answer to that one. No way. Guys like Jim are afraid to look in the mirror. They're afraid of what looks back at them.
Smith, whatever your name is, I have proven myself over a course of history. I have proven what I can do. Jim,
look, Jim, here's the hard thing for you. You may have been a major league player at one time, but you're sort of like Michael Jordan, who doesn't have his jump shot anymore. And you're having trouble facing up to the reality that the show left you.
What am I having trouble with? I am now the current best caller he's ever had. And I don't even call the show. What have I not? Well, what are you talking about?
You know, maybe back in the day when Paul was in Birmingham, maybe at the AAA level, you might have been a star. But sometimes the world changes. Sometimes the world changes, moves on. It doesn't make you a bad guy, Jim. Listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that not everybody thinks you're the star you think you are. I can't help that.
I didn't say a thing about being a star. I just said I'm the best. This show has had in ever, really ever. And that's people everywhere tell me that. So what are you doing but trying to belittle me to make yourself look good? You're trying to ride on the shoulders of me, and because you know that I'm unpopular on the show now. So that's what you're trying to do. You're not fooling anybody. You're like the regular Democrats that do nothing but like that wolf woman the other night, that evil fool that did what she did to a sweet, nice lady, Sarah Sanders. That's all you are.
There you go.
Same crap.
There you go. So now he even thinks he has my politics figured out. Boy, this guy just knows everything about everybody, doesn't he? Darn amazing. His talent level. Just amazing.
Jim, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Listen, is there any way for all of us to come together and find some common
Paul,
ground?
I'm not coming together with your stupid show. You and I know you're a smart guy. You know I'm a smart guy. But I'm not coming together with this foolish crap you've got on this air now. These stupid callers, they do nothing but belittle me because they know I'm the best, and they can't stand it because I'm like Trump. I criticize the truth with the truth. You know that. That's a fact.
Okay, well, listen, Jim, I really don't have a choice. I'm here.
And I'm still trying to help you, Paul. I give you my word. I'm still trying to help. Having guys like that clown is embarrassing to you and the show.
You talking about Ken?
Well,
yeah, but by the way, Jim, let me say this about Ken. I will not reveal his client list, but you would be amazed at some of the people.
Paul, in this day and time, there are fools everywhere on lists, client lists.
And fools everywhere on the radio, apparently, Jim.
Coming in with the heat.
I did to use, but moron. That's what you are. That's all you are. Just an idiot. Complete. I can't believe Paul put somebody like you that's so just shallow, so like a clown. You're worse than the kid that was on.
But Jim, why do you feel a good way to respond to me is by name calling?
Name calling? What else is there to call me? But what? I don't know what else to call you. I mean, really, you are an idiot.
Well, Jim, when people have a conversation,
name calling when it's accurate is fitting for you.
No, when decent people have a conversation, they don't call names. They may disagree, they may rebut, but they don't call names. But you keep wanting to drag me down the gutter, and I'm just not going to get down there with you.
You live in the gutter, sir. But you're so incompetent on what you're doing. You're so incompetent on what you're saying.
Jim,
how do you know?
Jim, that's not
Jim,
true.
How do you know?
Jim, honestly, that's really
how
not
do you
true.
know?
Anyway, I don't think we're going to resolve this as much as I would like to.
You're not going to resolve anything with that.
Paul, let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya, could we, please?
No, you're not going to resolve anything because I'm not getting I don't even want to try to be around somebody like this guy. Same with Squirrel. Same with iMonkey. You know, my 12 years, I've never wanted to be around with they're dumbasses, Paul. What do I want to be around with? Common trash.
Okay, I think we have Jim. Listen, I was hoping that you and Dr. Ken Smithmier could come to some.
You are hoping, Paul. You can say that I see that smile on your face. Boy, you.
By the way,
so
Darriel, your colleague over in Georgia, has agreed to take Ken's judgment test.
Good. That's exciting, Paul. You know what, Paul? Whether it's Jim, whether it's Darriel, because anybody that were actually to do this, they'll see that it's a very positive process. I don't sit around and pick people apart. I don't call people names like Jim just called me. I don't presume to know somebody's intelligence level or motivations or education or experience. I tend to give people benefit of the doubt until a guy like this calls in and he proves he doesn't deserve it. Then makes my case for me without me saying much.
Jim has left the building.
Before
you go, Ken, and I know you've already alluded to this, but someone like Jim, who was the so-called best caller, what do you hear when you engage? What did you hear when you engaged with him a minute ago, as much as you possibly could?
Well, yeah, Paul, you heard it too, right? And I wasn't on the air to talk to Jim. You had him on, and that's fine. But he immediately lapses into name calling. He immediately personalizes things that makes people skeptical of his own motivation. So he's not a guy that wants to have a discussion. I'll bet you I can have this discussion with Darriel. I kind of enjoyed Darrell's calls myself, by the way. If I was making a top 10 list, he'd be high up on it. Darrell's just a diehard homer. But that's just not Jim. And I really do believe, Paul, that in his case, he's just disappointed that the show has kind of left the station without him and can't cope with it. But that's okay. I'm sure he'll have a happy life without it.
By the way, that's not unusual, is it, Ken? There are some people who never can quite get over whether it's being the star of the high school baseball team or whatever, and then in their life that something in the past seems to be their guiding light as opposed to what could be happening now or what could be in the future.
Oh, Paul, I talk to people, and I'm talking about 50, 60-year-old people in senior positions in organizations. They got a burr under their saddle that's 40 years old. Something, a parent said something to them, a coach, something that is burned into their brain has negatively affected their behavior all these years. It's astounding. And I'm not saying that's the case with Jim. Of course, I don't know Jim any more than Jim knows me, just what we hear of each other on the radio. But, yeah, I see that all the time, and it's very, very hard for people to get past it when it happens.
Yeah, no. I mean, listen. I think you could say that about people in all walks of life and things, whether it's in work or in their personal life. But yeah, it's amazing to me, and I'm glad you listen. We had you on just to have some fun. I didn't intend for you to get into a barroom brawl with Jim, but he called in, and we thought that would be interesting.
Hard to have a barroom brawl, Paul, when only one guy's throwing beer at the other. And, if that was fun for Jim, he can have at it. I'm a big boy.
Great to have you. Ken, I know you'll come back. We would love to talk to you about serious issues, and the next time we'll make sure the doors are locked.
Okay, Paul, great. Good to talk to you.
Ken Smithmier joining us and debating Jim at the same time. We have more to come on the program. We are going to talk to a little bit about sports tonight with our next guest. He is Connor O'Gara. He's written about the NFL draft. He's written about Tua and Hurts, Fromm and Fields, and maybe Jim and Ken. Coming up next.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Next. You're holding up the line, ma'am.
What did you say?
You're next in line for the water slide, ma'am. Feet forward and enjoy the ride.
Okay, dearie. This does look fun. Whee! Oh, you melted me. I've melted.
The Wicked Witch of the West on a water slide? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
See what you've done. Oh!
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
We were talking during the break about what do SEC fans, what college football fans do now. It's pretty much over. The NFL draft is the end of that. So we're joined by Connor O'Gara. Over here? Oh, is he there? Okay. Let's welcome into the program and talk about the Summer Survival Guide and some of the incredibly important battles going on. Connor, thanks for the call. Really appreciate it. And let's start with the draft because I want to get to some campuses here in a minute. But your observations of the weekend, a lot of positivity and then some bizarre decisions or very unexplained falls from grace for a number of players. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How's it going? Hopefully we won't be as have conflicting battles going on here.
No, we're good. We are blocking any other caller for this segment.
That's good. Yeah, I mean with the draft, I just thought the fall of Darius Geis was bizarre. I mean to see a guy who didn't have the background with any sort of suspensions. He didn't have any drug issues or anything like that was made public or anything like that, and it was all just character issues. And there were little rumblings going on. Todd McShay came out and reported certain things about the kid and why this fall was happening. And, I think we kind of look at him on the surface and think this is a first-round talent, absolutely. And the Redskins end up getting him late in the second round. I thought that was a bit of a surprise, but still, I mean, a good landing spot for him. And, he's going to make of it, what he's, the opportunity that's presented, and I think he's still going to be in favorable position. That was maybe the bizarre thing. And then the bizarre thing that I thought was his teammate, Danny Etling, getting drafted in the seventh round, only SEC quarterback to come off the board. That kind of threw the whole broadcast team for a loop. I think they even talked about whether or not they were going to use him as like a Julian Edelman type and maybe convert him to slot receiver. Like, that's how thrown off they were about Danny Etling getting drafted. So I think those two notes from LSU were just those to me kind of stood out in terms of the bizarreness of the draft.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I don't think anyone had that with Etling. Let me ask you about another player that I just assumed he would go higher, and I don't know all the circumstances, but Bo Scarborough going as low as he did. Is there some explanation for that?
The dip in production, obviously, and I think there's durability issues. I think a lot of people have questioned whether or not he can really be a guy who can carry the ball 15 times in a game and have that impact that you would want. He's a little bit more built for the short yardage stuff, and we saw it in flashes, but we just didn't see the consistency from him throughout the 2017 season. And pretty much since he went down in that national championship game, it's just been big question marks, and he hasn't been the best running back in his own backfield. And I think you saw the way that Alabama sort of deviated from him in the postseason, really showed his, I don't want to say fall from grace, because I don't think that's fair to the kid, because I still think he could have some very good football ahead of him. But it just showed how much that dynamic changed, and Nick Saban wanted to lean on a guy like Damian Harris a lot more in those critical moments. His fall, I think, was a little bit surprising because he actually performed really well at the Combine, I thought. And everything that we heard during the pre-draft process was that he was going to be maybe a mid-rounds guy. I was actually talking with somebody earlier in the week about the projection and what he thought, and he was thinking maybe third or fourth round for him. And that didn't happen at all, and he just was taken way later than we thought. And running backs in the SEC coming off the board way ahead of him, and I thought that was one of the things that I certainly didn't see coming. I thought he was more of a fourth or fifth round guy.
Connor, away from the draft, I just want to spend a moment or two on some quarterback battles. We think they're battles. We know there's one in Tuscaloosa. We don't know about Georgia. What's your view on the Jalen Tua showdown in T-Town?
I think it's going to be fascinating to watch the way that this summer unfolds, really. I mean, we've come into this thinking that this is going to be a battle down until Nick Saban pretty much sends out his starter for the opening game of the season. But pretty much what we heard from Jalen Hurts' father is that this thing is going to get unfolded for that, and we're going to see whether or not he's going to be making a decision to transfer potentially this summer, potentially in fall camp. We don't know what he's going to do, and if those words that were, of course, in Matt Hayes' Bleacher Report story, if that's really if he's really going to hold him to that. But I think that this is going to develop very quickly, and the way that the spring game happened, I thought Tua left the door open, to use Jalen Hurts' father's words, for an opportunity there, but it didn't perform up to those standards and didn't necessarily run away with what I thought was an opportunity for him to really shine with Tua on the sideline. So my thinking is that Tua is still going to be the guy in Alabama. I think anybody who's suggesting otherwise is still holding on to Jalen's record a little bit too much, but it's not really about the past. It's about who gives you the best chance to win in the future. And in my eyes, and just kind of seeing the way that this is all developed, I think Tua is that. And I did an interview with Trent Dilfer last week where he had some incredible things to say about Tua and how much he impressed him at the Elite 11 camp, and how he thinks that if Tua's the starter, Alabama could potentially win every game 50-3. I mean, just some things that were just like, whoa. Even the biggest Tua supporters, I've never heard somebody go out and really dump that much praise on a kid before, and that's exactly what we saw from Trent. So I don't know. I mean, there's kind of a growing sentiment that this is going to be Tua's job, and everybody else who thinks that Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy, they sort of need a Hail Mary at this point.
Yeah, and before you go, we're short on time, but Fromm obviously didn't win the job. Then he did win it after the injury to Eason. What's your take on the Georgia quarterback situation with one of the most talented players ever showing up on campus, and we got a little bit of a glimpse of him during the spring game?
Yeah, and saw some great things from Justin Fields. I'm really impressed with the tools, obviously. I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of time watching him to see why everybody in Athens is so excited about this kid. He's got a little bit of this, as Trent Dilfer calls it, supreme physical confidence, which is the ability to sort of stand in the pocket even when you have a rusher coming straight at your face. Just kind of hold tight and everything's going to be okay and your athleticism is just going to take care of it. I think he has a little bit of that early in his career already. As for whether or not he's going to be able to compete for the starting job, I think this is still Jake Fromm. I don't think that Kirby Smart is going to realistically put Justin Fields in to start week one over Jake Fromm, given what Jake Fromm did last year. And the situation, obviously the parallels are there with Alabama, but to me, I don't know if I necessarily see this unfolding the same way that it did in the national championship last year with Hurts and Tua, because people might forget that we kind of had a little glimpse as to what Kirby Smart thought of Jake Fromm when Georgia goes down 31-14 in the Rose Bowl, and he could have made a decision to say, hey, I've got a kid in Jacob Eason who has a lot of comeback wins, and if he gives us a better chance to throw the ball, then that's who we need to put in. But he stuck with Jake Fromm, and of course they win the Rose Bowl and beat Oklahoma in a shootout. So I think that kind of says a lot about how Kirby Smart feels about Jake Fromm. Now, obviously the margin for error is very, very small when you have somebody like Justin Fields backing you up, but this is going to be fascinating to see the way that this unfolds, to see the way that Justin Fields gets involved in a game plan, because he's going to play in 2018, and maybe Georgia does a little bit of the Alabama thing like they did last year with Tua, where Tua comes into games early in the second half where Alabama's up like 20-0 or something, and maybe we see Justin Fields get increased reps where he can actually throw the ball, and it's not just garbage time. So yeah, it's fascinating to think about all the moving pieces here and really how this can all unfold in Athens.
Great stuff from Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South. Connor, fantastic conversation. I hope you'll come back soon.
Hey, appreciate it.
Great stuff. We are up against a break. Actually, we're late for a break, but we'll do that anyway. More to come. The final 30 minutes of the show is next.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a kill.
Welcome, radio, back to the program, our folks. So we've been on television, and we'll continue to be on both radio and TV. And just when you thought the celebrity callers had come to an end, let's go to a man that played golf over the weekend in Georgia and lived to tell about it.
That's right, Jack. Woo! Man, I'm telling you, son, Bama, Bama, Bama. Had a few Auburn players out there, but we all good. We shot 1 under, you know what I'm saying. We got beat by 17 under.
Wow.
So we need to take a test. All right.
You needed John Hayes on the team.
Yeah, he ain't ever gonna do nothing.
You know who you needed? You needed Jim from Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I mean today he was fired up. So I mean I believe he could have shot a 20 under by himself. I mean I'll take that test. I ain't worried about no test, but the way everybody's screaming about who's number one, number two. I don't care. I call in and take me for what I am, brother. Love me like I am. I karaoke.
Love me like a rock.
Woo! I karaoke, man. Saturday night I got up there singing karaoke. I sung Woolly
What was
Bully.
your karaoke song?
Woolly Bully.
Woolly Bully.
Quadros. Woolly Bully.
Woolly Bully's legitimately before my time.
Listen, man, you can scream that song. Yeah, don't worry about it. But I had a standing ovation.
Sam the Sham.
That's
the
right.
Pharaohs, weren't they? The Pharaohs.
Yeah, hey, I like it. Yeah, y'all on the track. I wish you'd been with us, Paul. We partied down after the golfing because we realized we wasn't worth split golfing, so we figured we'd try drinking beer. And
Bully.
Do what?
Randy and I are just humming Woolly Bully here in the studio.
Oh, yeah, Woolly Bully. Ride. Oh, yeah. You know any of the words?
I think it's like one, two, three. What's I know Woolly Bully, Woolly Bully.
Yeah. You got, the two big horns and a woolly bully.
I think it's uno, dos, 1, 2, tres, cuatro.
Uno, dos, cuatro.
Maddie told Hattie about a thing she saw.
Yeah.
Had two big horns.
And woolly, y'all. Woolly bully. Woo!
I don't think we can sing anymore without buying the rights to the song.
You got that right. I love you, man. Roll Tide. I'll take that test. Count me in.
Yeah, okay. I'll call Dr. Smithmier right away. Will is up next. Haven't heard from Will in a long time. What about it, Will?
What's going on, my friend?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm well. Yeah, it's tough to follow Larry from Shelby, though, but yeah, that list was pretty interesting from what I saw, and anything that stirs up Jim is, it's good for the program, man.
You've never been a big Jim fan, have you?
No, he's just, he's a closed-minded man, and I guess it takes, like you said, it takes all kinds on this show, but it's kind of like family or good friends. You don't have to hear from them all the time, but they, I feel like me, I don't call for much, and then I just pop in and say, hey, and, love the show still, and, it is what it is, and, no ill will, but, I think my favorite caller is always going to be Rich and Fred from Plano. Those are like my two guys that of course, Fred's like me. He don't have time to call in maybe as much as he'd like or whatever, but it's all in good fun. And look what the SEC did again this weekend. 53 drafted. Bama was astounding 12 guys, and LSU was second with 7. They just keep putting out that top-tier talent. No one else is really even close.
My question to you, Will, is 3 years from now, what's LSU going to look like in the draft?
I don't know. I'm still in shock over Belichick drafting our quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, if that guy if he can make Etling into an NFL quarterback, he will be better than Vince Lombardi, Bear Bryant, and John Wooden all rolled into one.
That may not be his end game, but it's interesting nevertheless. You're right. Well, Will, we're up against the break. Always great to hear from you. We are coming back with a couple more minutes here on a Monday afternoon. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Patrick is in Tennessee. You're on the air. Go right ahead. Patrick, you there? We cannot hear Patrick. We'll try him again. Joe is up next. What do you say, Joe?
Hey, Paul. How y'all doing today?
We are doing great. Thank you for asking.
Well, that's great. And y'all are professional as always. Y'all have my vote. Y'all could be on Fox News at night at 7 o'clock.
And we wish we were.
Well, that's good. And I do talk to my friend Brian Kilmeade over there sometimes, but that's on Fox News Radio, which is owned by Disney too, which explains Danny Cannell. But there's two issues I want to bring up, specifically Darriel in Columbus, Georgia. And the other one I heard when I listened to Jim from Tuscaloosa, the only two words he knows is moron and idiot.
Well, first of all, Joe, if you're going to quote Jim from Tuscaloosa correctly, get it right. It's moron.
Yeah, moron. Well, I think he's a chicken butt sniffer, and that's just my take on him. And he needs
hold on, Joe. A chicken what? Sniffer?
Yeah, chicken butt sniffer. Because you can just hear it's like a little bird chirping, chirping, chirping each time he comes on the air, and all he can do is downgrade people. And the only one I'm on Jim's side is with Squirrel in Mississippi. With Squirrel, he just...
You don't like Squirrel?
He's got a fascination with Jim for some reason. Why, I don't know.
Don't we all?
But I understand his hatred toward him. But Darriel in Georgia...
Hey, Joe, I hate to interrupt you, but is there anything you'd like to talk about other than all the callers?
Yes, I would. But please bear with me. I want to tell Darriel to shut his face. I don't care what book he's in. I've been in a book. Snoopy's in a book. But Darriel needs to shut his face.
What book have you been in, Joe?
I've been in books, Paul.
I'm just asking you a simple question. Give me one example.
I think he's a chicken butt sniffer.
Okay, we've heard that. I asked you a question. You didn't answer it. Harold is up next in Georgia. How are you, Harold?
Hey, man, it's good to see you.
Thank you very much.
I hadn't talked to you lately, but I just wanted to talk about our young friend up in Montclair, New Jersey.
Yes, please do. Drew.
I nominate him as a new... I call you a star maker. You got your big swagoo, and this is what I propose. I propose that he made you put up that LSU plays this coming year. You probably didn't realize you got your Miami to start the year, and then you got down in Baton Rouge that Kirby Smart's going to have to play down there.
That's a tough schedule.
I tell you what. Here's what I propose. You have the big swagoo. You are the star maker, You made the big swagoo. That person that said that Laura Rutledge talks too much, well, I am so glad that I hadn't drank as much as Larry, because that Laura Rutledge, she is the player. She goes to gymnastics, which John, who won't let me talk about gymnastics on your show. But my point is, I proposed this. I wrote this up. I will be willing to pay for young, what's that fella up in Montclair? Drew. I would give him a college scholarship to come down to see me in the big swagoo.
Okay, I appreciate the call. Neil is up next. Neil, go right ahead.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Been watching the show forever.
Appreciate that very much.
Big Alabama fan. I'm a Vietnam veteran, a Birmingham retired firefighter.
Wow.
And Alabama has had 25 first-round picks in the last 8 years. So Alabama's still got the dynasty.
They do, Neil. Hey, thank you very much for the call. Appreciate your service in both Birmingham and Vietnam. We are done.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.